Hey guys, this is the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for December 4th, 2024. We're going to be doing the Week 14 NFL picks against the spread for the 2024 NFL season. Before we intro our co-hosts for tonight, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. So you can see I'm wearing a Walter Football shirt, Cole's Body, Cole's Choice, which confuses some people, and they're like what happened? Like who's Cole? I'm like, oh, he had to take an experimental drug and he got fired for it, and they're like, oh, it's so terrible. Yeah, you can buy the shirt here. It's actually 30% off. I'm just looking at this for the first time. These shirts used to be 25% off. I guess this is their Cyber Monday or whatever sale. I guess a day late, but still 30% off. This apron's 40% off. Yeah, this is probably the best it's going to get here. So yeah, if you guys want to buy a shirt or a couple shirts to the apron, and we also have a mug here, which is 30% off as well. You guys can go click the link in the description and just buy a shirt and really help support the show. Or you can go to Amazon, buy my books. The most recent one, Jerks to the College Years, where I made fun of people at Penn State, where I stayed for 6 years. Or how the 2020 MVP was stolen, which is how Brett Favre tried to sabotage Aaron Rodgers in 2020. Or please consider super chats, super stickers. Those are the best way to support the show because YouTube ads pay nothing, and you guys really help a lot. In the past couple of weeks, we had John Sanders, drove for show, Slew, Can't Make an Eagle, Jesse Cintron. You guys have been so awesome with your contributions, and any further ones would really be appreciated. I can't say that enough. So, all right, we are joined once again by Evan Daniel. Evan, how's it going? How's your week 13?
Hey, week 13 was tough. It was one of those weeks where I ended the week with the Cleveland plus 5.5. I know you were on the other side of that game, and that's just one of those games that's kind of summed up my picks this year on dogs, teams that I routinely look for, live games that I think have live plays, live dogs in them. Getting 5.5, getting anywhere from 3.5 to 6.5 for years has been my sweet spot, and just twice the punch in the gut with Jameis with the pick six down by 2. And then, of course, once they get to the 2 yard line, right away, before you can even blink, picks going back the other way. I will say I continue to get saved on some of these games. It was the fourth time where I hit a Sunday or Monday night FanDuel special at 15-1. This week it was 17-1 on a player to throw for 450 yards or more. Now, that bet actually was for anybody the entire week 13, which I do every week just for fun. And of course, Jameis, he gives and he takes, but 497 yards gets us there. So we'll take the yards, we'll take the money, but it would be nice to win a couple of these contest picks. We were 1-4 this week, and that's just unacceptable. So hopefully get back on the right track this week.
That was the full Jameis experience. It really was. Like he threw a pick six, and then he came back, led a touchdown drive right before halftime. Then he threw a 70-yard bomb. And then, of course, at the end, he had a pick six to get the cover for Denver, and then he almost got it back, and then he threw an interception. That was like stereotypical Jameis.
Yeah, 500
But
yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 pick sixes, 1 pick in the end zone to blow the cover. I mean, he gave you everything last night, and then he
yeah,
gave you a speech to pray to the Lord to stop throwing pick sixes, which is actually just hilarious, also. So, the full Jameis experience. Have to determine whether or not I want to get back on the Jameis train this week or suffer through another performance because we know it's coming. You know what you're signing up for when you pick Jameis. So we'll get there soon.
yeah. My recommendation is if you do sign up for Jameis again, I would take some heart medication because I felt like that took like 5 years off my life. Like so many swings. I thought like, yeah, we're gonna go Denver. Because I luckily I went 5-0 in the Super Contest. Did not deserve last night's game, but still, so I was rooting for 5-0, and so I was like, yeah, we're gonna get it, and then like, oh man, now we're not gonna get it. It sucks. And then oh my god, we're gonna get it, and then it's like, oh, we're not gonna get it. It's like so many times it swung back and forth for me last night. I'm not gonna bet on Jameis or against Jameis Winston this week. Spoiler alert for that one. But let's get to the games here. We have 13 games. This is the final Sunday or final week of the season where we don't have buys. So we have 6 teams off this week. So, like I said, 13 games. We start with the Packers at the Lions. So this is not a normal Thursday game, whereas like usually these teams have 4 days of rest, or actually 3 days of rest to prepare. These teams obviously played on Thanksgiving, so this is basically like a regular game for them. So they get to have their mini bye after this game. So this line is either lines minus 3.5 or 3, depending on where you look. The event spread, by the way, was definitely higher. It was around 6, and then of course that dropped because the Lions suffered some injuries. They almost lost to the Bears, and the Packers looked so impressive on Thanksgiving night. And usually, you like to bet or fade these line moves, but I'm not going to do that here for a couple of reasons. One, I think the Packers match up well against the Lions. I know they got blown out in the first game, but Jordan Love was playing hurt. He had an injured groin. He couldn't move. And that really affected the game. And I think that him being healthy now is going to be big for that because I think he can take advantage of the injuries that Detroit has in their secondary and also their linebacking core. And the Packers have stopped the run well the past couple of weeks, which is definitely key against the Lions. Like you have to be able to stop the run to have a chance against the Lions. The Packers can do that. And the other reason is like the Lions, I mentioned this briefly, the Lions are starting to get a lot of injuries. We'll have to see exactly who's playing and who's not. But their players on defense are dropping like flies. And eventually it's just going to be too much for them to cover and overcome against great teams like the Packers. I do think the Packers are a great team. They're 9-3, and 2 of their losses came when Jordan Love came back from injury too early. So I like Green Bay here. I think this is almost a coin flip game. I have the Lions winning by 1 point, so I'm taking the plus 3.5. If it's 3, I'm not as excited about it, but 3.5, probably going to be on it for 2 units. So, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I would have been on the Packers with the advanced line of 6.5 points, and I know that line actually got bet midweek before the games even got played. So that line opened a little high at the Westgate, but that's kind of where my power ratings have this game at 6, and I have this internal struggle of going against my numbers. So I hate being on a game at plus 3 for sure. 3, I'm not taking 3. 3.5. I mean, the back door certainly could be open. The teams do match up well, but I do think this game is going to have a lot of points in it. Now, Detroit got way too cute last week. They took the ball first. They had that drive. They're running the ball a little bit too much. It was almost like they were setting up third down, maybe with the notion that they were willing to go for fourth downs as well. That was like my only inclination as I'm watching the first drive and some of the drives throughout the game is like, why are we running the ball 2nd and 8? I guess they assume they're going to go for fourth downs, but I didn't like a lot of the play calling in that game. And obviously you mentioned the defensive injuries and the defense in general, but I still make the game much higher than 3.5. So I have a hard time. I don't really have a pick in this game right now. I'm certainly not taking this for a contest pick, but 2 top 5 offenses. I like the points. I like points in general, not the points as the underdog points. I like that there will be a lot of points in this game. I can see this game being one of those 27-27 type of games where at the end of the game, are you getting a touchdown or are you able to, run the clock methodically and kick a game-winning field goal to win by 3? Or where Green Bay might be down by 7 to 10 points. And are they going to come back and tie this game, maybe go for 2? I can also see this being an overtime game where somebody gets the ball and wins the game by a touchdown in overtime. So I'm not rushing to play plus 3.5 when I really did like 6.5 coming in. And then when I saw the line 3, I said, stay away, because to me, it's too much of an overreaction. And I still like Detroit. I think Detroit is the far superior team. And even with the injuries, we already had the injury to Hutchinson. I think the other injuries, yes, they all add up, but I don't really see any real impact players here. I think Jordan Love is the guy that he's either going to make that deep ball, home run hit, touchdown, or he's also the guy that's throwing picks in the end zone. So he still leads the league in picks. I think he might still lead. If he's not leading the league, he's up there. Maybe Cousins overtook that this week. But I'm definitely not rushing to play Green Bay on the road plus 3 in this spot.
Yeah. Well, we saw the Packers were able to, play well against Detroit last Thanksgiving. So maybe we'll do that again. But you're right. We lost the line value that we had, unfortunately. So this isn't looking as lucrative. Like I said, if it's only 3, I'm not a huge fan of this one. But 3.5, I'm willing to bet a couple units on it. Yeah, not a super contest pick for me either. Even
Did you pick to win this game? I know you said it was a 1-point game. You have Detroit winning by 1?
Detroit winning by 1, yeah. So.
I wouldn't be surprised this is an overtime game. I think this is a game where if somebody needs to score late, I don't think the other team's defense can stop them. So if you have a 7-point game or a 3-point game late in the game, I can very likely see whoever's down 3 putting together a drive to win by 4, or down by 7 to win, to tie the game. Or, Campbell he'll go for 2. He'll go for 2 to win the game by 1. So maybe your 1-point prediction is a good one. But I think this game I think it's a one-score game. I don't think there's real value here taking Green Bay.
Oh, we almost saw overtime in Detroit last week, but Matt
We should have
Eberflus.
seen overtime in Detroit last week.
Yeah, Matt Eberflus froze and went
Yeah.
brain dead, and then he's almost like just looking at him on the sideline. He's almost like Mitch McConnell when he froze that one time speaking. It's such an embarrassment for the Bears, but I assume the Packers are going to be more prepared for any final game antics. Winfield Scott, a 199 super chat. Thank you so much, Winfield. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, definitely read them right away. So thank you so much. Just really appreciate it. All right, let's get to the Sunday games. So we have Falcons at the Vikings. This line keeps climbing. It was 4.5, and now it's 5.5. I did see a 6, but I don't really see it anymore. So maybe there's some take back here, but I really don't have any interest in this game because I want to fade both teams. The Vikings, they're 5-1 without Christian Darrisaw, which sounds impressive that they were able to overcome such a horrible injury. But then you kind of look at the wins where all the teams they have played currently don't have winning records. Like they played Indianapolis, for example, as a close game, even with Joe Flacco. They struggled to beat the Jaguars by 5. Now they beat the Titans by 10. It's probably their best win by margin, but they went to overtime against the Bears, and then they were down 19-6 against the Cardinals. They ended up winning the game, but still, like, they easily could have lost that one. So I want to fade this Minnesota team. I think they're a paper tiger at 10-2. Then you look at the Falcons, and you're like, how do you back them with Kirk Cousins throwing 4 interceptions? Now, one at the end of the game, that was kind of in desperation mode, but the other 3 were terrible. I don't know what he's doing. And this is not just like a one-game sample size. He was awful against Denver before the bye. And we just saw Jameis Winston throw for 500 yards against that Denver defense. More recently, before that, they got blown out at home against Seattle. This team is just not good. Like, they racked up their wins against the NFC South teams. So they are being exposed now. So I don't really know where to go with this. I think I am going to side with Atlanta just because I don't believe Minnesota can win by margin without their left tackle, but Cousins could easily give this game away. And so it's just why I don't have any, I'm just not eager enough to bet Atlanta here. So do you like either side?
No, I don't. I probably lean towards taking the points because I also would rather fade both sides. Now, the question here is Cousins hurt? I heard a report yesterday that the fastest throw did not exceed 35 miles an hour. Now, take that for what you will, but if he can't throw, if he's got a shoulder injury of some sort, and it certainly looks like he has something wrong with his arm because he's a statue in the pocket. He's always been a statue in the pocket, but he's always had zip on the ball. He's always been able to throw passes downfield with some velocity. His pick sixes were such telegraphed throws. They were horrendous. And that's not a quarterback that you want to be back. Now, he's going back to Minnesota, so there's somewhat of a revenge factor of him going back. I mean, I wonder if they would think about going to Penix and benching Kirk Cousins if he is indeed hurt. But, I mean, Minnesota, they held Arizona to 1 for 6 in the red zone. Otherwise, they get blown out in that game. And Minnesota has played a lot of one-score games. 6 of their last 7 wins have been by 1 score. And Atlanta, other than the Denver game, most of their games are also one-score games. I mean, Koo likes to miss field goals. We've seen that a number of times already this year. Atlanta earlier in the season should have lost a few games by 1 score, ended up coming back and winning a few games by 1 score. The Tampa Bay game comes to mind, that Tampa Bay blew. The Eagles game comes to mind. They actually probably should have beaten Kansas City, but a lot of teams probably should have beaten Kansas City. So, I think the spread is probably right. It's close to being right. I would have made this game somewhat 3.5, 4, maybe 5, 5.5. It's a little inflated. But I think this game is going to be a one-possession game. I'm not rushing to bet Atlanta because I just don't know if Cousins is healthy. And even if he is, I don't really like him against the Flores rush because, like I said, he's a statue in the pocket. But I'm not laying points with Sam Darnold. I mean, he's played better lately than he did, about a month ago. He had a couple of games in a row where, they couldn't score against Jacksonville, which is the worst defense, or one of the worst defenses in the league. And I just don't trust either of these teams. Atlanta, 3 straight losses, 36 total points in those 3 games. I don't trust either of these teams to score, and therefore I'm not laying points.
Yeah, makes sense. Sloop pointing out Falcons finally had a pass rush, miracle of bye. That was bizarre. I don't know where that came from. I know Arnold Ebiketie, the former second round pick, had like 2 sacks or something. But they had 5 sacks on the Chargers,
Yeah.
who have a good offensive line. I was so like befuddled by that. I don't know where that came from. Maybe it was a fluke. I have no
And you know
idea.
what else was weird? Another fluke. Minnesota's got a great run defense,
Yeah.
and they were terrible against the run against Arizona this week.
Hmm.
So, can Atlanta take advantage of that? They'll need to.
Yeah.
If they can't run the football, then Cousins is a sitting duck behind that offensive line against that blitz.
Yeah.
So, but they're certainly, I mean, they need the game. They're now 6-6. I happen to think there's value on Tampa Bay winning the division, even though, I mean, they're now tied. Of course, Atlanta has the tiebreaker with the 2 wins, but Tampa Bay's got a joke of a schedule down the stretch, and there might be value on Tampa Bay. This is actually a must-win game for Atlanta. I wouldn't call it a must-win game, but they need to get back on the winning track. And if they don't have a healthy quarterback, I wouldn't want to be on Atlanta either. So no way I'm putting this game in a contest pick, and I just don't have confidence laying points with Darnold.
Yeah, Tampa plus 110 for the division. I'm looking at FanDuel, Falcons minus 140. I thought it would be tighter than that. I know, like you said, the Falcons in first place right now because of the sweep, but I thought, like, given how poorly Atlanta's played recently and how how Tampa's healthier now with Mike Evans back, Jamil Dean, Tristan Wirfs, they're all back. I thought it'd be even. I thought I'd see like minus 120 ish for both teams or so, minus 115 or something. But yeah, it's I do think that Tampa plus 110 is looking pretty good.
Tampa, I bet over 8.5 wins a few weeks ago. Over 9.5 wins might have some value now also. We'll tease ahead to Tampa, but 9.5 wins, I think they easily can go 4-1 down the stretch.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say easily, but they're certainly going to be favored in a couple of these games.
Yeah, they almost lost to Carolina too.
They're going to be favored in 4 of their last 5 games.
I was really hoping for Carolina to win to like really tighten everything in that division. I was like, maybe the Panthers have a chance. But I bet them. I bet them.
That'd be great.
I bet them as a flyer. I bet Carolina's a flyer at like 13-1 to win the division before the season. I was like, I think all these 4 teams are even. I don't like any of them. So I was like, why not take Carolina here? I just made a small bet on it. But
I think Tampa Bay is the best of the bunch, but none of them are good.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right. So speaking of the NFC South, we have Saints at the Giants. This line is Saints minus 5. I feel like this is deja vu because we just saw this game a couple weeks ago where Tampa went to the Giants and they're favored by almost the same amount. Like Tampa, I think, was minus 6 in that game, and they really took it to the Giants. It wasn't even close. Have to wonder if New Orleans is going to have the same sort of result here. New Orleans not as good as Tampa. I definitely think you agree with that, but the Saints, they're definitely. I think they're definitely better than the Giants by a wide margin, considering that the Giants are tanking. They just lost Dexter Lawrence. This is a huge deal, and they have no quarterback. They cut Daniel Jones. The players got disgruntled. It seems like they've quit, and it's either Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito. Both are awful. The Saints have a somewhat decent defense, not great. But they've gotten some players back from injury, and so I think you saw it against the Rams. Like they held the Rams to no points in the first half. They pressured Stafford pretty well. The run defense is not terrible, but it improved a little bit. So they have some stuff going on. But the key for me is the offensive line, because they lost their backup and they're already down 2 linemen. But Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz, they're not on IR. So I think they have a chance to play this week if they're both back, especially McCoy, who's one of the best centers in the NFL. I think the Saints are going to look pretty good because they'll be able to run the ball with Kamara. And I think Taysom Hill going down really unlocks Kamara, and I think he's going to have a great matchup here. The Saints still have, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's caught deep passes in 3 games in a row. Juwan Johnson's okay. Like this is like a worse version of the Buccaneers, but I still think that they're substantially better than the Giants, who just are they're just a lost cause right now. And I think that the smart move is to fade them every game down the stretch unless they're playing another horrible team. So I like the Saints at minus 5, even though this line may seem high. I actually not sure if it's high enough. So what do you think about this game?
So I have a bunch of underdogs this week, 5 or 6 dogs that I have, including the Giants, that I don't like, but I highlighted them because I have the Giants as the worst team in the league. I have them minus 9 in my power ratings. I have the Saints at minus 3.5, so certainly not good. I lowered them a point with Taysom Hill injury. You say it might unlock Kamara. I think Taysom Hill was really a secret weapon for them. Not a secret weapon, but a real weapon that they've needed in the last few weeks. He was their 4th down machine. He was the guy getting the ball in the red zone. He was actually probably one of their leading receivers as well. So he was kind of the jack of all trades. And certainly his loss is going to affect them a lot. Derek Carr playing outdoors, laying points on the road, not for me. I understand the Giants. Dexter Lawrence being out is a big loss. The tight end, who has been very involved, is a big loss. I think both coaches are lame duck coaches. I don't think Daboll keeps his job. Certainly, Saints are in the market for a new coach. So I don't like what I saw from the Giants last week either. I mean, they gave up a 100-yard rusher, Rico Dowdle at 100 yards. So the Giants kind of a lifeless team, and that's the fear. We said a few weeks ago with the Tampa game, that was the game where they first benched Daniel Jones and then, of course, cut him. And the team kind of had a mutiny in the locker room. They were all fighting with each other, and they got blown out. It looked that way. Last week, they weren't lifeless. I mean, certainly Drew Lock cost them 14 points. He threw a pick six, and then he fumbled and gave Dallas a short field. Otherwise, the game was basically 14-13. And I don't know that the Giants win this game. I don't know that the Giants care to win this game, but I'm not laying points with Derek Carr outdoors without Taysom Hill. And I think maybe the Giants show some level of pride here. I don't like either of these teams. Like I said, I'm on the dog. I think it's certainly a game where they could show up. Will they win? I'm not suggesting they're going to win the game. The line does feel a little inflated to me. And you say maybe not enough. Again, I'm not rushing to really just disagree and say, no, you're wrong, I'm right, take the Giants. But the Giants are, to me, a team here at +5. I just wouldn't have any comfort laying points with the Saints. I don't think the Saints are anywhere near as good as Tampa Bay right now. I mean, aside from the way Baker played last week, I think the Saints are the Bucs are a much better team than New Orleans. So I don't look at those two games as being comparable. I just think here we're getting points at home with a team that just got embarrassed on Thanksgiving, embarrassed the week before. Do they pack it in? This week we'll know. And if they do get blown out this week, then we know. We know it's fully over, and you could fade them at whatever number. Because I have them at -9 in the ratings. Like I said, there's not much worse that they can be as far as worse than an average team. -9 is pretty low down on the list. So we'll see where that takes me now. But right now I'm on the Giants, and certainly I wouldn't be surprised if they won the game.
Well, if they do quit next week, we have Ravens and Giants, and Ravens are -14 on the advanced spread. So
yep.
We might see an even higher. We might see 17 if the Giants embarrass themselves again. Here, which should be remarkable. And I still think I'd be on the Ravens at that point. But
I would too. If the Giants don't show up this week, that line next week can't be high enough.
Yeah, totally agree.
And Baltimore, remember, Baltimore's coming off the bye and the loss. So Baltimore is, waiting to get back on track, pissed off now for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Henry could rush for 200. Lamar could rush for another 100 in that game. The Ravens would have 300-plus yards rushing in that game.
Yeah.
If the Giants don't show up this week with no Dexter. That's a bad matchup. So I think the Giants might see that on the schedule. So, oh, shoot, we have one game where we can maybe get a win here, and then it's over. So
yeah, we'll see I personally think they're done. I don't see how they bounce back from. I mean, their front office and coaching staff basically said that we're tanking. Like they benched their best quarterback and then cut him. Like if you're a player, like how do you fight through that? Like how do you show up? Like knowing that your coaches and your front office don't want to win.
Right, and that's what happened there first game against Tampa. They didn't. They saw exactly that. They got blown out of the building, but. These are still professional athletes that let's see if they can have some pride for one more week.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, let's get to the next game here, which is another beauty. We have Jaguars at the Titans. This line is Titans -3.5, and kind of like wondering how people can bet Will Levis is more than a field goal favorite. I know I just said to recommend. I know I just recommended Derek Carr at -5 on the road, but Will Levis is much worse. He can be a train wreck in the pocket. He makes some beautiful throws, but he just he takes a ton of sacks and then he makes boneheaded decisions. And I know this is a quote unquote good matchup against the Jacksonville defense that's been horrible, but I still don't trust Will Levis. And the Jaguars have some semblance of a pass rush, so they might be able to get to Levis. And remember, like Tennessee, they went to overtime against the Patriots at home. It's not like a team that is like any good. So even though this is Mac Jones, I wish we could fade Mac Jones this week. I assume it's going to be Mac Jones. I just can't get behind betting the Titans at -3.5 there. I mean, I'm going to quote Andy, or Andy Isco, who we have on the show on Thursday, who said, "When you have garbage versus garbage, take garbage plus the points." So that's what I'm going to do here. Not going to bet Jacksonville or anything, but I will lean toward Jacksonville. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I would do the same. And I hate the matchup. I hate both of these teams. Titans, obviously, they're off the blowout loss. They didn't show up last week. They won a game against Houston, and they were flat as can be to start. They were down 28-0 before like 1:30. And Jacksonville, number 32 ranked defense. This is certainly a get right spot for Tennessee. But Tennessee, we cannot ask Levis to lay points. They're 2-10 against the spread, and they're 0-3 as a favorite. Now, the Jaguars are 7-5 against the spread. They could obviously easily be 3-9 because 4 of those games they were down big. There's one thing we could say about Jacksonville, which is strange because they have probably a lame duck coach as well. They fight. When they're down big, they continue to play. They were down 17 last week. They lost by 3. They're down by 22. I think it was 22-0 against Philly. They came back and played. They're down big against Green Bay. They came back and covered. So if there's one thing when they're down, and they'll probably be down at some point, they're not going to quit. They're not very good. Their defense is horrible. Mac Jones is horrible. But we're not going to lay points with Tennessee and expect them to hold the leads. Like you said, the New England game, Tennessee led by 7 in that game, and Drake May drove the field and got the game tying touchdown. Of course, they didn't go for 2. They probably should have, but that's a very likely scenario here. Is first of all, either team can win this game. We have no idea. This is a game I don't want to bet. This is a game I won't have in any contest. I won't have any money on this game whatsoever. But if you look up and you see the score is 24-17 or 24-14, and Jacksonville gives you the back door, would you be surprised? Absolutely not. So I think that's the way I would lean towards office pool picks here. I think the spread probably should be 3, just a flat 3, because I have no idea who's going to win this game. I certainly agree with Tennessee being favored, but would not be laying points with 2-10 against a spread team, 0-3 as a favorite. That's not something I'm excited about. So I would take Jacksonville and not look.
How confused was Gerard Mayo when the Colts went for 2? He was like, I can't believe they went for 2, and it's still like after the game and they lost. They're like, oh, those idiots! Like, they went for 2. Just that's you're right. They should have went for 2 that the one time against Tennessee, and I luckily didn't. I had Tennessee -3, so I was happy about that result. But, I don't get these coaches that aren't aggressive at all. It just seems like a huge mistake. All right, let's get to the next game. We have Raiders at Buccaneers, the rematch of Super Bowl 37. The Buccaneers are favored by 7 or 6.5. I've seen this line drop to 6.5 in some places, and I was a little confused about that just because I'm on Tampa here. I talk about this almost every week whenever Tampa's playing a bad quarterback. Todd Bowles' defense, even after they declined at the start of last season, they have played very well against bad quarterbacks. And I was wondering how to classify Bryce Young last week, just because he had been playing better. Plus, he's a former first number 1 overall pick. And I thought that maybe Young had taken the next step. I just wasn't sure, so I laid off the Tampa Carolina game last week. But against the bad quarterbacks that Todd Bowles has faced since the start of last year, he is 6-2 against the spread, straight up, and against the spread against those quarterbacks. He's allowed 14.5 points in those games. Now, Aiden O'Connell had a great game against the Chiefs, relatively speaking, but he almost led the Raiders to victory over the Chiefs. But I don't necessarily trust them. Last year, if you exclude garbage time, he was the 3rd worst quarterback in the NFL, according to EPA. The only quarterbacks who were worse were Deshaun Watson and Easton Stick. And then he had a start earlier this year against the Steelers where the Raiders were just shellacked. They just didn't stand a chance against the Steelers. And I think this could be a similar result. Like, the Buccaneers getting healthier. Now I know that Mayfield looked a little banged up last week, but he got cleated in the back of his leg. So it's not like a long-term injury or anything like that. Like, he should be healthy for this week. Like, I don't think he's going to have any lingering effects from that. Tristan Wirfs is back. It's a big deal against, the defensive line with Max Crosby. Mike Evans, this is his 3rd game back. Jamil Dean is 3rd game back. Like, this is a Tampa team that is going to be as strong as they were at the start of the year, minus Chris Godwin. But I still think that they're a really good team here. Whereas the Raiders, we've seen them lay some eggs. For example, at Cincinnati, they got blown out. at Miami. It was close for a while, but eventually they got blown out. I'm not going to let like one game against Kansas City team that sleepwalks through almost every game affect my judgment on the Raiders. So I like the Buccaneers here to continue to bully bad quarterbacks, and I think O'Connell's going to have a disastrous game. So I like Tampa to cover pretty easily. So who do you like here?
So you make a lot of good points, and but I like the Raiders in the game. And even though they're off the spirited loss again to Kansas City, right? Crosby and the defensive line were great. Yes, Kansas City sleepwalks through every game and does the bare minimum that it takes to win. But that defense is actually very good. That Raider defense with Crosby in the game is a top 10 defense. The last time they lost to Kansas City, also a spirited loss where they covered. And they're happy when they cover against Kitty. They don't care if they win. They just want to play well and be respected. They did lose that next game by 17 to Cincinnati. And Tampa Bay, yes, you're right. They do bully some of these bad teams, but I don't agree with the Bryce Young comments. The Bryce Young played like an all-pro, and I know he's got first-round pedigree. Bryce Young, to me, is still a bust. He has played much better in the last couple of games. He's absolutely played much better. But I don't buy that he's a good quarterback. And I don't buy Aiden O'Connell is a good quarterback either, but Aiden O'Connell had a nice game. He's playing better now than he did last year, and Brock Bowers is playing at an all-pro level, of course. I believe this team has some fight in them. I just worry about, is there a letdown factor after the Kansas City games? Like, they get so hyped up for the Kansas City games, and then it's like the week later they completely sometimes lay an egg. So that's my biggest fear in this game. Tampa Bay has made a bunch of mediocre quarterbacks this year look really, really good. I mean, Kirk Cousins, who hasn't looked good for the most part, had a 500-yard passing game against this defense. So that's something that I'm very, very concerned about. Tampa Bay, one thing in their favor, they finally found the running back that they can trust. They rushed for over 200 yards in the game. That's something that I would be concerned about if I'm on the Raiders side. And I am also concerned that Raiders offense hasn't had more than 20 points in basically eight of their last 9 games. But their defenses that they faced have been much better defenses. I mean, I still think the Chiefs are a good defense, even though they haven't really shown it as much. They played Denver recently a couple of times. I'm just not ready to buy Tampa Bay's defense when they just made Bryce Young look like an all-pro. So I worry about the letdown spot, the exhale off of the Kansas City matchup. I made this line personally 6. I was not surprised to see it drop from 7 to 6.5. I actually thought about betting it at 7, and then I missed the boat, so I haven't bet the Raiders yet. But I think this game could be close. In Tampa Bay, I don't know what it was last week, whether he got stepped on. I don't think it was injury-related. I think Baker was reckless in the game. And if he's reckless in this game, they can find themselves behind again. So I don't look at this like the situation like with the Giants a couple of weeks ago, which had external factors that we discussed already. I think this game could be very, very close. I just think if the Bucs put up 27, 30 or more, they're going to run away with it. So the only way the Raiders stay in this game is if they keep this game like low 40s, 24-20, 23-20, somewhere in that ballpark. Once Tampa Bay gets to 27 plus, I lose all confidence in the Raiders. So I'm thinking this game could be a closer game, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm looking out for weather reports here. I think right now this is a game that looked okay. I would certainly like this game a little bit more if it were played in poor weather, because I like Crosby. That defensive line, and that was a really, really strong performance. So that's what I'd be banking on here, but I'm worried about the exhale off the Kansas City.
Yeah, the past 3 times the Raiders played the Chiefs, they lost their next game. One of those losses was the 3-0 loss to Minnesota last year. Then they lost to the Colts last year, and like you said, they came back this year and lost to Cincinnati, but they got blown out in that game. My point about the quarterbacks wasn't like I'm definitely not saying Bryce Young's a good quarterback. My point was that like I don't think Bryce Young at this point should be considered one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Whereas like he's played like pretty decently for like the past four games or so. Whereas like I would rate him like below average at this point. Whereas like before to start the year, and then last year he was like an anemic quarterback who's awful. So I just think that Dave Canales has elevated him. Plus he has good pass protection too. That definitely helps. But I think Canales has elevated him to like the 20 to 25 range of quarterbacks, whereas like he's not 26 to 32 anymore. That was like my point about that. Whereas I think like Aiden O'Connell, if you were to rank him amongst all the starting quarterbacks in the NFL, he's definitely in the 26 to 32 range, like despite what he did against Kansas City. So my thing is with Tampa is like to back them whenever they're playing a terrible quarterback like that, because Bowles can throw a lot at these quarterbacks. Like I'm talking about guys like Tommy DeVito, Spencer Rattler, Will Levis, like the guys like that. Levis last year at least. Bryce Young last year. Desmond Ridder. Like these awful quarterbacks who shouldn't be starting at all. Like they haven't stood a chance against Todd Bowles' defense. Whereas like guys like a little above that in the 20 to 25 range, they're okay against Todd Bowles. That's basically the point I was making.
I hear you. I just think it's too small of a sample size. He's played great. Last week he was really good, and the week against the Chiefs, he really made some impressive throws, especially on third down against zero blitz. So I was impressed by that. But I'm not ready to put him in the 20 to 25 rate bucket yet. I don't think Aiden O'Connell's a backup quarterback. I get it. So is Ridder. So is Levis. And I think Bryce Young will be in that mold as well. If he continues to play like this, we'll see. He's got a really tough matchup this week against the best defense in the league. So we'll see how he responds against that defense this week. But I need a little bit larger of a sample size before I'm ready to change my opinion on Bryce Young. Right now, I still maintain Bryce Young is a 5'10", 180-pound quarterback. He can't see over the offensive line and lacks arm strength to get the ball really outside the numbers consistently. Let me see a few more games before his first 15 or so games, and before I change my opinion on that. So he's had 2 or 3 maybe good games now. Let me see a few more. Right now, I'm still going to believe that the Tampa defense is not what I think it needs to be a real playoff contender. I do think there's a lot of value on them. I don't think they're going to lose this game, which is why I bet over 8.5 wins 2 weeks ago, and I still think there might be value at plus money on over 9.5. I'd be surprised if they lose, but they should have lost last week. I mean, Baker was horrible in that game last week. It wasn't just Bryce Young. Baker was terrible, and they were very, very lucky to end that game with Hubbard fumbling. Otherwise, and that would have been my survivor, because I have all my potential survivors written down. That would have been my survivor. I would have had a heart attack before that game ended. So they absolutely deserve to lose that game.
So I agree, and I do also agree that it's a small sample size for Bryce Young. I totally agree with that. But I will say though, Carolina's defense, we're not on Carolina yet, but Carolina's defense has improved the past few weeks because they got DJ Wonnum back. They had no pass rush at all, and Wonnum coming back really helped in that regard. And like they've gotten after the quarterback pretty well past couple games. Because they sacked Mahomes a bunch of times in the second half. They got after Mayfield. Like this is not like the worst defense that we saw like historically. Remember, they were tracking to be the worst historic defense of all time. This is definitely not the case anymore. Although they are still trouble.
I bumped them. They were at minus 11. We talked before about the Giants. I have the Giants minus 9, which is pretty low. I was as low as Panthers minus 11. So I've elevated them. I have now Panthers minus 6. But minus 6 is good enough to be the number 31 ranked team in the league. So I still have the Patriots a half point ahead of them. I have the Raiders and Dallas a full point ahead of them. So I still don't believe in the Panthers. And that doesn't mean I won't bet the Panthers. I was on the Panthers 2 weeks ago. I was not on the Panthers last week. We took them again. I took them as a contest pick against Kansas City. I mean, that line I thought was too high. And we'll get to them in a couple of minutes. But I still have them ranked as one of the worst teams. So again, the sample size is important. It's only been 1 or 2 games. And one of those games was the Giants game in Germany or wherever we sent them to overseas. So I'm not ready yet to start praising Carolina. They should have won the game. They did enough to probably win the game outside of the kicker who missed a bunch of kicks and a fluky fumble. But I'm not ready to crown them as, now all of a sudden a slightly below average team. To me, they're still one of the bottom feeders of the league.
Okay. I'm more bullish on them. I moved them up to 25th in my power rankings.
25th, okay.
But I don't like any of these teams down here. So it's not like it's more so moving those teams down than moving Carolina up, I think. Like the Jets are definitely in the bottom 5 for me now, and they're below the Panthers. But we'll get to them as well. All right, so next game we have Browns. Yeah, I know. Browns with the Steelers. I already said I'm not going to bet this game, so I can just toss it to you. But now Steelers are favored by 6.5 here. Now, on one hand, I want to say that the Steelers will rebound from their loss, like eventual loss that they had on Thursday night in that snow globe game. Because it was only 2 weeks ago, and I'll bring up the stat later about teams playing against each other two weeks later. But as far as this one's concerned, like like the thought crossed mind. I'm like, yeah, the Steelers will probably have a better game plan than that Thursday night game where I thought they were kind of like um, just caught like unawares against the Browns, whereas like they just didn't really expect Cleveland to play a good game, and I think that they might play harder. But then you look at their schedule; they have some tough games after this one. After the Browns, they have to play the Eagles and the Ravens, and then the Chiefs, and so. I wonder if they're even going to be focused. And like I said, it's a revenge game, but like how seriously are they going to take the Browns? Like the 3-win Browns, like even after a loss a couple weeks ago. So and then you also have Mike Tomlin as a favorite. So Tomlin has generally done very poorly in these situations, favored by more than a field goal. I just don't want to back him in that regard. But then it's like, okay, do you take the Browns and risk another heart attack with Jameis Winston? Throwing pick sixes or deep touchdowns. Like you could literally get anything with him on any play. It's the most exciting quarterback in the NFL, I think. But like I can't stomach.
Just call Jameis Winston the most exciting quarterback in the NFL. That's fantastic.
It is. He really is. Like literally anything can happen. So I'm not going to bet this one. I already said it. So do you like this at all?
No, not really. I would have to lean towards the points. I'm going to give credit to Russell Wilson because I can't stand Russell Wilson. But the reality is Russell Wilson played an unbelievable game. We know Cincinnati's defense is bad, really bad. Take that out of the equation. Wilson had a great game. The pick six early, that was probably a PI. At best, his receiver fell down. That's not on the quarterback. That's on the receiver or the refs for not throwing the flag. I have no problem with them not throwing the flag, but certainly wasn't Russ's fault. Throw a pick six, the sign of a really solid veteran quarterback, because let's be fair, right now that's the way he's playing, is, we're down 7-0, I threw a pick six, no worries, drive the field, touchdown. We're down 14-7, don't worry about it, drive the field, touchdown. Like when that guy got the ball, he made plays. 8 receivers had 20-plus yard receptions in the game. He completed passes to 10 separate receivers. That is an impressive quarterbacking performance. So got to give credit where credit's due. He has been really, really, really good. It doesn't matter that, and I've said this every single week, there's interceptions against Pittsburgh that are fluky. He's throwing the ball up for grabs, and it's somewhat fluky. At some point, it's not fluky anymore because he does it every single week. Now, Pittsburgh is really bad in the red zone. That takes away the threat of the deep ball, so they have not been great in the red zone. I still can't believe I lost Cleveland plus 5.5, but whatever, I'm past it now. It may rain in Pittsburgh this week, so that's something to really look out for. I definitely don't know what kind of performance we're going to get out of Jameis Winston in the rain. Maybe the snow is a little bit different, but with a slick ball, not a game that I want to be on right now. Just something where I have a hard time laying points with Tomlin. I think the line is right. 7 is, I think, way too high. I think Circa right now has the line at 7. Westgate's at 6.5, which is where I think the line really should be. But I do worry about Pittsburgh in the red zone. I don't think Pittsburgh cares to win by margin. One thing to know about Pittsburgh, they're 9-3 against the spread. 9-3 against spread. Excellent, right? 6-0 is dogs, 3-3 is favorites. So I'm not rushing to bet Pittsburgh as a favorite, especially in a divisional game. This game, to me, could be like the Chargers game, where Cleveland statistically was in the game, but they crossed midfield 5 times in a row and didn't score. So they could have had points, 3, 6, 7 points on any one of those drives, and they ended up getting blown out. If you told me this game was 27-3, I'd believe it. If you told me this game was 24-22, something weird like that, I would believe that as well, or 17-16 or 19-17. If there's weather that's really affecting downfield passing. So I think there's a whole range of outcomes that I can expect in this game, will not be surprised about. So I would take the points. I would be surprised if Pittsburgh lost, but it's not unlike Tomlin. If you think back historically to when Pittsburgh was really good, like a really Super Bowl contender, when when Roethlisberger was at his prime, when they had Le'Veon Bell and AB all in their primes, and they were like a top 3 team. How many times can you remember a night game where they're favored by like 10.5, 11, 12 points to Cleveland, who's at the bottom of the league, or the Raiders, and they would lose outright? Tomlin led the league in losing those games outright as big favorites. So I wouldn't be shocked if Cleveland went in and won this game, but I don't expect Cleveland to go in and win this game. So I'm on the points here. But with the weather factor and the divisional factor and Pittsburgh being 3-3 against spread as a favorite, no thanks laying the points. I would pick the Browns again and just laugh when there's a pick six late or a pick in the end zone late that blows the potential for a backdoor cover.
Yeah, you know it's going to happen too. It's what you get with Winston. Parrot Essen doesn't feel like Vegas doesn't want people to bet Pittsburgh with how high this line is. Well, they are betting Pittsburgh. It looks like around 78% of the money is on the Steelers, so they are taking the bait there. So, yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think of it that way. I'm kind of surprised that the public isn't on the Browns, given how well they played against Denver. But I guess still the Steelers are going to be a public team.
What I'm seeing is that the majority of the tickets and really the majority of the money is on Cleveland.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe
that's tracking a couple. That's Circa, Westgate, South Point, DraftKings, Caesars, Bet Online, Bookmaker. Maybe one or two more here that are kind of obscure. But again, it's early in the week, so it's really not enough data yet. And I don't think limits are high enough in most places yet for that to really make a difference. I wouldn't worry at this point in the week where the money is going, but the line definitely came down from 7 to 6.5. Mm-hmm. So that could tell you what you need to know. But I think the line's fair. I wouldn't, if you're rushing to bet Jameis, don't be surprised with the outcome when there's 3 picks in the game. And I don't think he's throwing 4 touchdown passes against Pittsburgh's defense.
No.
This is a different animal than Denver. I think this game is much closer to 40 points than 70 points.
Yeah, and Denver, I think we both agree that they're not as good as their 8-5 record indicates. You know, they're not on this slate, and like we're going to be able to bet them or bet against them in the playoffs.
Yeah, but I finally moved Pittsburgh, and I've been anti-Pittsburgh and I've been anti-Russell Wilson, but numbers don't lie, and I'm not going to continue getting burned by this team. I have Pittsburgh right now number 6, number 6 in my power ratings. I don't know where do you have Pittsburgh right now?
Number 7.
7, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know where to stack Baltimore and Pittsburgh with each other, so I initially put Pittsburgh 6, Baltimore 7, and then I swapped them. And I moved Baltimore to 6, Pittsburgh to 7.
I have Baltimore 4.
Okay. I wonder the one team that I have in my top 5 that you don't. I assume it's Green Bay or maybe Kansas City.
Green Bay. I have Green Bay at 8.
Okay, Green Bay 4. So that would explain why I like Green Bay more on Thursday night. So
yeah, I mean I only have 1 point of difference between Green Bay and Pittsburgh. If Green Bay goes into Detroit and wins outright, they're going to be elevated into probably number 6. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have Green Bay at 6 if they go in and beat Detroit in Detroit.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. Let's get to the next game. So Panthers at Eagles. Touched on this briefly earlier. So what you said about Bryce Young, I'm going to bring that up here. So Young has played better, but we agree that it's a small sample size. And in that sample size, he's played well in 4 games. It was against the Saints, the Giants, the Chiefs, and the Buccaneers. All 4 of those teams are in the bottom half of EPA defensively. The Eagles are first, so we're about to see what Bryce Young is made of. What really hurts the Panthers here is their run defense against Saquon Barkley. So that's just going to be a very difficult matchup here. If you just look at the matchups, like Carolina doesn't stand a chance. However, there are other factors, and one of them is that the Eagles, after this game, they have to play the Steelers, the Redskins, and the Cowboys. So this could be a major look ahead, especially off a statement win in Baltimore. I feel like this could be a game like Jacksonville, where they were up 22-0, and then they started goofing around with like weird 2-point conversion plays and kicking 57-yard field goals or whatever they tried, and then like weirdly going for it on like 4th and 8. I forget what they were doing exactly, but they were just messing around. They just didn't seem to care, and the Jaguars got them at the end with the cover. Obviously didn't win outright, but still they beat the spread, and this is a high number, 12.5. So if you were to tell me, Walt, like the Eagles will be a 100% focus in this game, I would take the Eagles without a doubt. But I don't know if they're going to be like that, so I just don't know how to approach this game. So, and I think like predicting a team's mental state is very difficult unless you have like an in the locker room, like a source there. Like it's almost seems impossible to me. So I will be passing on this game. So do you have a play here?
Yeah, I'm on Philly because I made the line 14.5. And I
Okay.
think there's value in the line. And again, you can't handicap mentality, motivation to win by margin. I've said enough earlier about Carolina. The one thing that Carolina probably does well that maybe bodes well for them in this matchup is they run the ball, where they at least Philly is not great against the run. Philly is the number one defense, the number one pass defense. They don't have the number one rushing defense. The problem is when you're down by 2 touchdowns, you have to throw the ball. Now, you mentioned the Jaguars game. I totally agree. That was Lawrence, and that's a different story. Now, I don't like Lawrence that much. I think Lawrence is grossly overrated. I think he's a loser. Certainly, he loses many more games than he wins, but he's got legitimate number one talent, although he hasn't really shown it as much. He's a legitimate number one pick, and I think he's going to be around for a long time. So when they're down 20, if it's a 21, 22 nothing type of game, this game is going to get ugly because in this game, Hurts is going to run well. He's also going to utilize play action. He'll throw the ball deep. Saquon, if he wants to, he'll run for 200 yards. He may not. You may find him sitting in the fourth quarter, letting them go to Gainwell and some other guys to run the football. Carolina can't stop the run. They just gave up 236 yards rushing to Bucky Irving. Now, Bucky's a good running back. I like Bucky, but he's not Saquon, and he's not the Eagles' offensive line. And that defense certainly is not what the Eagles' defense has been. Now, Eagles, since their 8-game winning streak began, and the first one of that was the Browns win by 4. Half the wins are coming by 17 plus points. They're beating teams by margin, and they're creating turnovers, and they're stepping on the throat. They're not necessarily letting up. That Jaguars game was unique. They started getting cute. It's hard, like you said, to handicap motivation, but I think this game, I think they're putting up 30 plus easily. I'd be very surprised if this game were close at halftime. I think they come out. When you have a team that can really physically impose their will here, you don't have to worry about completing third downs. I think they just come out and just run the ball down Carolina's throat. And I don't see – if you show me Bryce Young's success in this game, I change my tune immediately. He'll be in that 20 to 25 bucket right away instead of the 26 to 32 bucket. I don't see it. I don't see the running game going anywhere in their favor. I think Philly's going to rush for 250 to 300 yards, if not more. And I think this game has 38-10 written all over it.
Yeah, I could easily see it going that way too. Just like I said, it depends on the motivation. It is a terrible flat spot, like motivationally for the Eagles, but it doesn't mean that they're going to fall victim to it. And even at 80% mentally, I think they could cover the spread. I just we'll see how much they focus. Yeah, they want the 1 seed. Yeah, absolutely. So that could be that could definitely be a factor, but at the same time, if you're the Eagles, and you're coming off this huge win against the Ravens, and then you have these 3 tough games coming up, and you're like, oh, Carolina, this is gonna be easy.
Right, that's always the concern.
Yeah,
that's always the concern. What are you guys doing here? But usually those upsets are because of mistakes, like a muffed punt, a fumbled kickoff, a weird interception. And I think they just gonna, we don't have to worry about any of that. We're just gonna line up and run the ball.
Yep.
And if they don't line up, if they get cute, if they come out in the first quarter and they have more pass attempts than rushes, it's like, what are you guys doing? Mm-hmm. Hand the ball, give the ball to Barkley, get up 14-0 and call it a day. But if they don't, we'll see. I just think this team has shown, and we said it about 8 weeks ago, Philly was not the team to win by margin. But in their 8-game winning streak now, I think they're gunning for that one spot. And if Detroit slips up, I don't think the Eagles are going to lose another game. I mean, that win last week was really, really impressive. Even with all the Tucker misses, Eagles still really controlled that game. They easily could have gone on the road and beaten Baltimore, who I think is one of the top teams, by 2 touchdowns. So I don't see another. I mean, that Washington game on the road is very interesting. I'm excited to watch that game, but I don't think the Eagles lose another game. If Detroit slips up, if that 1 seed goes through Philly, I think that's your Super Bowl team.
Yeah. Music to my ears. I have the Eagles as I think a 12-1 to have the most wins in the NFL this year. So rooting for it. Might have a split pot with a couple of teams, but we'll see. I'll take it either way, especially after that 2-2 start. All right. Fantasy question here: Saints defense or Chargers? Definitely Saints defense for me against the Giants. Horrible offense, or whatever you want to call it. Chargers are playing against the Chiefs. We'll get to that game, but definitely the Saints defense for me.
Yeah, that's an easy call.
Yeah. All right. Last of the early games, we have the Jets at the Dolphins. This line is Dolphins -6.5. I made this line much higher. I made this line Dolphins -9. And if that's not high enough, the EPA numbers say this line should be Dolphins -14 because the metrics don't have any biases with the Jets, and they view the Jets as the worst team in the NFL. And frankly, the Jets have been playing like it. Like they were gifted 21 points last week against the Seahawks on special teams, and they didn't score after that. They just lost 26-21. They didn't score at all in the second half. Just a dreadful performance here. And I mean, we know these teams, right? We know the Jets. They just lose no matter what, unless they're playing on Thursday night. Like they've covered the spread once since week 3 against the Texans. It's ridiculous. And then you have the Dolphins, who only beat bad teams. They don't beat the good teams, but they beat the bad teams. And they are coming off an embarrassing loss on national TV. I think they bounce back here, and they have to. It's a must-win game for them. I know that doesn't mean they're going to win, but they will be focused off that blowout loss. And feel like they match up well against the Jets because the Jets miss so many tackles, and the Dolphins, what they do is they get the ball out of Tua's hands quickly, and they let the playmakers do their thing. And I think that the Jets are just going to miss tackles on Achane and Tyreek and all these guys. So I feel like Miami should just be able to do whatever they want in this game, and the Jets are just going to be embarrassed. And I feel like they're just not setting this line high enough. Like, and it's been a constant theme with the Jets, because remember, like, the Jets kept being favored over and over again. And then last week, like, the Seahawks are finally favored on the road, and yet the Jets took money, and then they were like pick them by a kickoff, and it's like what are they doing?
They were favored. They were favored.
They're favored even. Yeah, it's like what is going on here? This team's awful. I'm more than happy to fade them. I faded them last week. Fade them again. I love Miami here. So what do you think?
I don't love Miami. I don't really. I hate to say it. I don't really know who I like in this game because my head tells me I should take the Jets, but I know exactly where that leads. Now, you mentioned being favored. Since the first game of the season, the Jets have been favored in 9 of 11 games.
Terrible.
9 of 11 games, and the 2 games they were underdogs, they were dogs by 2.5 and 1. So call it a pick 'em, right? So the difference here between this game and these other 9 of 11 games is that they're finally dogs by a little bit of a margin. Now, the Jets, obviously, it's not that they didn't show up. The only game they really didn't show up in was the Arizona game. Yes, they've missed tackles. Yes, they've been really bad. Yes, they were gifted a lot of points last week, but they're finding ways to lose. They're in the games for the most part, and they're finding ways to lose. They found a way to lose to Indy. They found a way to lose to Seattle. They're finding ways to lose games, but they're not necessarily losing by 7, 10, 13, 14 points. I don't make the line 13. I also don't make the line 6. I have the Jets. I still have the Jets pretty low. Maybe not low enough. I probably have to lower them more. But I have Miami as a below-average team. I understand that they've beaten some bad teams. We talked about the Raiders earlier. They were up by 5 in that game. And then late in the game, they pulled away after there was a 3rd and 5 PI with like 3 minutes to go, and then Miami scored. The Dolphins are not a good football team. I don't trust Tua. I don't trust their defense. I don't trust their coach. Now, I know the Jets don't have a coach. I don't want to lay 6.5 points with Miami. I was looking at looking at a teaser earlier, like who would I put in a teaser? And I'm looking at Miami, and I click Miami, and then I unclick Miami. I'm thinking, I don't trust Miami. And I don't trust the Jets, but I don't trust Miami to win. I certainly don't trust Miami to win by margin. I understand you trust Tua. I see John Sanders against bad teams at home. But maybe the Jets show some pride in a divisional matchup. Maybe not. Maybe they're going from New York where it's freezing out, and they're going down south and it's a vacation and it's nice and sunny and they don't care. And they're certainly not coached well, and they don't like Rodgers, and there could be a mutiny like the other New York team. So I don't want to be on the Jets, but I'm certainly not rushing and excited about laying points with Miami here. So it's a kind of a tough game for me to handicap because I know I've been wrong on the Jets every single week. Last week I picked the Jets because I figured, you know what, I'm getting for me it was Seattle laying 2.5, and then the line moved to pick them, and then of course Jets being favorites. I'm like, there's no value in 2.5. Maybe it's one of those 1-point games back and forth. And I was feeling really smart when it was 21-7, and Rodgers completely misses Garrett Wilson and wide open in the end zone. But if the Jets score there, it's 28-7. The game's pretty much over. Instead, 2 seconds later, next play, pick 6, 90-something yards returned. So, and that was the end of that. But I don't trust Miami laying points. I'm not looking to play Miami in this spot.
I'm with John here. Like, I don't see the Jets showing any pride. I think they know they're done. They had such high expectations, and it's over for them. I think they're going on vacation, like you said. Like they we said it. Someone the Jets are already Florida getting loaded. I don't know if that's actually true, but I do imagine that they're going to be doing a lot of partying in Miami. I don't see them showing up for this game at all.
What's interesting is you'll have a lot of Jet fans in Miami booing them.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Yeah. No, I think this team sucks, and
But I just think it's like a Jets thing to do to find a weird way to lose by one or blow a game.
yeah. I guess I don't know. That's like even the results. Like you look at I'm gonna flash this on the screen. So like so yeah, they lost by 5 to Seattle, but like they had 21
No,
points.
you're right. You're definitely right about that. They were gifted a lot of
Yeah,
points.
yeah. I don't know. Like before that, they lose to the Colts. The Colts aren't that good. And they were at
I'm
home.
not a Miami guy. I don't have a lot of confidence in Tua. I know he puts up stats against bad teams.
Yeah.
But again, I know this team hasn't really shown a lot of pride, but they have some players. They have the talent. If they really if Sauce wants to play hard and show some pride individually. I'm not talking about as a team, and I don't like the team to prepare. Like their coach, there's no preparation anyway. The game plan is horrible, but I just don't trust Miami laying points. And again, I could see this game being 27-3, just like the Arizona game. If the Jets get down early, pack it in, they're done, and that's where live betting comes into play. And you'll see the Jets are not fighting back. We know that. If they go down 17-0 in this game or 20-3 in this game, if Miami comes down and scores a touchdown, Jets 3 and out, or they punt, it's now 14-0. The Jets are not fighting back. This is not a team like even Jacksonville that's been showing some pride in game. But I think the Jets could keep this game close early. Maybe Rodgers connects on one of these passes to Devontae or Garrett Wilson. Maybe Garrett Wilson makes a special play. And the Jets just haven't gotten blown out this year. The games have been generally one-score games, other than Arizona. So I want to see early in the game where the Jets come out. I would love to live bet Miami if they're down. And I might live bet Miami if Miami's up. But going into the game, I'm not rushing to lay 6.5.
They play some bad teams too, or like not great teams. Like I'm looking at their schedule here. The best team they played since Buffalo, or I should say, since Pittsburgh, I should say. Like they played the Patriots, terrible. They played the Texans, who were missing Nico Collins and a bunch of guys. They played the Cardinals, like you said, blowout. They played the Colts, who are not good, and
they blew the game against the Colts.
Yeah, and then
2 scores in that game.
Yeah, and then they played the Seahawks. Like Seahawks, I guess the best team they played since Pittsburgh. Like I don't know. And I do like Miami more than you do. I have them 12th. I think they can sit on the bad teams. They've shown us that.
Right. So I have Miami 18. I have Miami as a negative. There, I have them below average.
Okay, makes sense.
And I'm not going to put them as a good team until they beat a good team. They haven't beaten a good team in 2 years.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But I like they will crush the bad teams. That's what they do. Yeah, Dolphins beat the Jets 34-13 and 30-0 last year when the Jets defense was good. Yeah, it's a good point by John. Yeah, that Jets defense is horrible. The most missed tackles per game in the NFL this year, which is it's ridiculous to think about that with all the talent that they have. Just shows you how poorly they're coached. And they can't really game plan anything because they don't have a real head coach. All right. Next game we have Seattle at Arizona. So this is the rematch of the game that we had 2 weeks ago where Seattle won 16-6. That game could have gone differently. Kyler Murray missed 2 potential touchdowns, and so Arizona may have won that game. But I didn't know what to make of that game. I thought the line was pretty fairly priced, so I didn't bet it on it at all. I'd feel the same way about this one, but there's kind of like this phenomenon, and I don't know if you're familiar with like how these games have gone, but what the NFL has started to do recently, for some reason, I don't know why, but they started having like divisional matchups twice in 3 weeks, which is like you saw.
I don't like it.
What's that?
I don't like it. I've seen them do it a bunch of times.
Yeah, I don't like it either. They started doing it a lot recently. I don't know why, but they have. And I was digging into how these teams have done, like the teams coming off a loss, how they've done 2 weeks later. And they've actually done pretty well. The team team trying to get revenge is 46-31 against the spread. If you take out, they're 49-34 against the spread. If you take out when they're favored by 6 or more, like a high number, then they're 46-31 against the spread. So about 60% against the spread. Now I don't like to just bet on trends or anything like that. I think that can be a trap. But this, it makes sense here. I think it's almost like the zigzag rule in the NBA playoffs, where you're going to have Arizona trying to come up with a better game plan to beat Seattle, and Seattle is kind of like maybe resting on their laurels because they beat this team a couple weeks ago. So I think it makes sense to take Arizona here. It's the only real angle I have. Like I said, I think these teams are evenly matched. They're playing better defense than I think people expected, and their quarterbacking can be shaky at times, and they have good weapons. I just think this is pretty even otherwise. But given the revenge angle, I think I'm willing to go like maybe a unit or two on Arizona. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, that's where I would lean as well. Now, 2 weeks ago, I think the market and most people liked Arizona in Seattle. I thought the teams were evenly matched, and I gave 1.5, 2 points to Seattle for being at home. So I was on Seattle in that game, and I'm in Arizona this week for the same reason. I think that revenge angle, I don't know if it's revenge, more of like the adjustments, right? You win the game, you're satisfied with what you did. The team that lost, there's adjustments to make. And that's why you saw, or at least in the olden days, you saw in the NBA that zigzag theory worked. It doesn't work much anymore because most of the NBA players just don't care until their backs are against the wall. Mm-hmm. Here, I think there is an adjustment, the situation. And I think one of the adjustments here, and we saw last week also, Arizona was 1 for 6 in the red zone last week. They were over 2 in the red zone against Seattle 2 weeks ago. They haven't been good in that area. And that's something that needs to change. They also need to stop kicking short field goals. In the Arizona game, they threw a pick. I think Kyler was picked on a 4th and 1. And then they also kicked a short field goal. They kicked a field goal from the 4-yard line. You're not going to win games kicking field goals from the 4-yard line. I've said this 100 times in the last few weeks. If this team doesn't change their aggressive approach, they're not going to win these games. Now, Geno has been very good. I said 2 weeks ago that Geno has the most come from behind wins in fourth quarter overtime in the last 2 years. So he's been impressive. Certainly their passing game has been impressive. I really thought that Arizona had an advantage running the ball. I know Seattle's been better against the run lately, but Arizona was great last week against the run, against Minnesota's defense, which is usually pretty good against the run. We talked about that before. I like Arizona to win this game. This line is getting a little bit too high because I've seen some threes pop up and then they go right back to 2.5. If you're in a pool and the line is 3 and then the line moves to 3.5 because nothing is a flat line, it always is an extra half a point. I would be on Seattle at plus 3.5, but I like Arizona at minus 2.5. So it's like, where do you go in this type of game? I expect Arizona to win, but I wouldn't bet it. I think this game is a complete toss-up. It's going to be 24-21, something in that neighborhood. But I would trust Arizona at home needing the game more than Seattle. And again, you're going to continue to see this NFC West flip-flop. 3 weeks ago, Seattle was like plus 500. Now they're the favorite. Arizona was favored last week. Now they're the second favorite. So I think the winner of this game is in the driver's seat. And I think Arizona is the one that's going to get there. And then they have a really easy schedule down the road. So I would maybe look towards Arizona on a divisional bet now, getting like plus 200, I think maybe 175, that ballpark. Because I think if they're going to win this game, I think they take a real driver's seat lead for the division.
And remember,
New England and Carolina are on deck.
Yeah, remember a few weeks ago when we were looking at the NFC West odds, Seattle was 6-1, and you recommended them at 6-1. So
I probably only did because I figured all 4 teams at that point were like a toss-up.
Yeah.
And I said, if you're getting 6-1, play it, and then you can hedge it later on. And I didn't do that. I didn't listen to my own recommendation. I didn't play 6-1. Oh, well. I forgot that I even said that. But no, that's the truth. I mean, this division will continue to flop. By the way, Seattle's won the last 6 games against Arizona. So take it for what you will. There's kind of like this little carousel. But I think there's a flip-flop here with the with the game being played 2 weeks ago now, flipping the home field. Seattle due for a loss. Arizona needs to get – Arizona should have won last week. They kicked a lot of field goals. You can't kick field goals and win football games. If you're going to kick field goals, you're not going to win. You're going to blow leads. You're not going to step on teams' throats. And we'll see if that happens again. But pay attention to the fourth down play calling, pay attention to goal line situations. And if you start seeing teams kicking field goals from the 4, go to the other side. That's a good way to lose games. And they did the one thing you should never do, and I credit Greg Olson, who said it on the spot. I love Greg Olson. He's a great announcer, significantly better than Tom Brady. Greg Olson immediately said as soon as they kicked that field goal to go up by 6, he explained in about 45 seconds why it's the biggest mistake. Mm-hmm. There's nothing worse from a lead perspective than being up 6 at the end of a football game. I would much, much rather be up 3. You either punt and maintain your 3-point lead, because kicking, obviously, you can miss the field goal and then you're giving away field position. Going up 6 means that the other team is in 4-down, aggressive play calling territory. They have to get a touchdown. They have to be aggressive. Being up 3, as you saw from teams like Chicago, where they get a little confused. Oh, maybe there's something. Maybe that was just Eberflus, but teams don't have to be aggressive. They can kick a field goal once they get to field goal range. How many times have we seen Cincinnati this year get into field goal range from the 35 and then just take their foot off the gas and then not do anything with the ball? Right. So the minute they were up by 6, Greg Olson talked about exactly what I've said 100 times in the last few years, in that you don't want to be up by 6. The minute they were up by 6, I didn't think the game was over. I'm like, all right, you still need Sam Darnold to make some plays, but Darnold did. And that's why they lost. If they were up by 3, Minnesota probably kicks a field goal and that game goes to overtime.
Yeah. John, agreed totally. Broncos in the same situation, kicked the field goal yesterday. We were texting and I was like, I think this is a losing move. Now Winston ended up throwing a pick 6, so it didn't matter. But
if he doesn't throw a pick 6, he gets them into field goal range.
Yeah,
at least
easily.
They probably don't make the field goal because they're the Browns.
Right.
But they would have lost by 2 instead of 9.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. But plus they were in altitude too, so easier to get in the field goal range theoretically than the normal. So
right.
I thought that was a stupid decision, especially given that he called the timeout beforehand. I'm like, okay, when he called timeout, I'm like, oh, he's definitely going for it. Like, if you're going to kick it, just take the 5-yard penalty, just in case you need the timeout after that.
If you're in a situation like 4th and 6 or less, you got it. If you're down 2, you want the ball, you want to run the clock out, especially if you're playing. And it's not even just when you're playing Mahomes. We saw Aiden O'Connell drive the field with no timeouts. Mm-hmm. Like it was nothing. We saw Bryce Young last week against Kansas City. I understand. Okay, we're not talking too much about Bryce Young now, but NFL teams with 4 downs will drive the field.
Yeah.
More often than not. And usually they get right back to the spot where the other team punted from or missed a field goal from within 2 or 3 plays. Because the prevent defense is there. Now you say, oh, well, they would have, instead of being from the 10 to the 40, they would have been 40 to make the opposing 30 or 20. It's like, no, that's not the case. As you get closer to your end zone, your prevent defense somewhat shrinks. I always am in favor of a team 4th and 6, 4th and 5. Don't kick field goals. Go for it. You got to end the game. You got to end the game on your terms. And I would much rather have my 50-50 shot on 4th and 5 than punt and give another team 4 downs, whether college or pro. I see it way too often. Teams just walk down the field. Mm-hmm. And that's something that Arizona hopefully will learn from in this situation, because that's why they blew the game yesterday.
Yeah.
Or Sunday.
Kim McEagle asking Packers plus 9.5 and Seattle plus 9 on the teaser. What do you think?
No thanks. No value.
Yeah, I don't like 3.5 to 9.5. It's definitely not that. That's Seattle 3 to 9 or 2.5 to 8.5.
You're not crossing enough key numbers to make it worthwhile mathematically.
Yes. So if it's Seattle plus 2.5, take it to 8.5. I like that. But then you have to.
If you get a discounted 7-point teaser and you're playing 3.5 to 10.5, 3 to 10, but usually those are like minus 140, and that's not smart.
Yeah. So if I had to take a teaser this week, I think I would go. It's probably Seattle plus 8.5 and Tampa minus 1.5, Tampa minus 0.5, or Tampa minus 1. If I had to, I don't really see any legs I like though.
I would have thought you liked Miami.
Miami. Well, they're not at 7.
Right. You're not necessarily getting your key numbers. It's not. There's not a lot of value. You're paying a premium for not. You're not getting what you're paying for, basically.
Right. Right. It's I don't see it. I don't. Yeah. Unfortunately you don't get good teasers all the time, and I don't really see anything here. Outside of Seattle plus 8.5, and even that, like I'm not crazy about, just because I can
I
see
think
that.
you're far better with both of these games. You're far better waiting for a halftime bet or a live bet
Yeah.
because I think both of these games could be very close. And the ebb and flow of a football game, like any other sporting event, it's not going to be 3-0, 3-3, 6-3, 6-6. You're going to get 7-0. You're going to get 10-3. You might get 10-0. You might get 14-3. There was a lot of value last week on Seattle. Seattle was down 14-0 before you blinked.
Yeah.
When they scored, a friend of mine's like, "Oh, we got to get on Seattle now." I'm like, I don't know, I don't love it. And then I waited too long, and it's like the missed, the fumbles, the kicks, like just bad situational, and it just happened too fast. But that's if you're paying attention to the live markets, that's where you get really good value. You're not getting a really good value playing 9.5 on a teaser. You're going to get better value when Detroit takes a 7-0 lead, and then betting Green Bay plus 7.5 instead of 3.5.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and sometimes like I said, sometimes the teasers just aren't there. All right, so we have Bills at the Rams. Lions Bills minus 4.5. I I think this could be a tough spot motivationally for the Bills, kind of like the Eagles game where they're coming off a statement win against the Niners in that crazy snow game. And then after this game, they have to play the Lions. So I don't know if they're going to be fully focused, but given this is a trip to the West Coast, they could see this as like a business trip of sorts. Like, and I assume that they're going to have a lot of fans in the stands too. And the Rams are, I like the Rams as a, I think they're a good team. I think they can make the playoffs, but I don't see them competing against the better teams in the NFL, like the elite teams. Like we saw this a couple weeks ago when the Eagles went into LA and they just stopped all over the Rams. Like the Rams are really well coached, really well quarterback. They have a lot of good pieces. Their pass rush has gotten a lot better. They have the two receivers, Stafford, obviously. But I feel like that can only carry them so much. Like they can beat the bad teams, they can beat the mediocre teams, but when they get to that upper echelon, the Eagles, like the Bills here, the Lions, who they lost to twice last year in the playoffs, and then this year, they just can't seem to get over the hump. And I think that could be their downfall in this game. But like I said, the Bills are not focused because this sandwich situation. Then maybe the Rams could get them. I don't know if it went outright, but maybe cover the spread somehow in a backdoor fashion. So I guess I'm leaning Buffalo despite what I just said, but I'm not interested in betting this game. What do you think about this one?
I like Buffalo. I don't think there's a situation where this is not the year where Buffalo's overlooking games. We've
Okay.
had a number of games already as the proof. They didn't overlook Seattle when they had Miami on deck. They beat Miami. They didn't overlook the Colts when they had Kansas City on deck. They beat Kansas City Super Bowl. They're going into a bye celebrating the Kansas City win. They don't overlook San Francisco. I don't think they're overlooking a game. They're playing on Sunday Night Football. Is this a night game? No, I'm sorry. This is
Yeah,
4
no.
o'clock. This is okay. It's an afternoon 4 o'clock game. They've scored now 30 plus points in each of their last 7 games. So their offense is now rolling. Some of these teams we've seen over the years, Kansas City lets or trades Tyreek Hill, and they don't miss a beat. Buffalo lets Diggs go, and their offense is even better. So they're one of these teams around. They're running the ball. When they're running the ball the way they are, they put up over 200 yards rushing. I understand the Niners are injured, and it was a kind of a weird game, but they're committed to the run. I could see a similar game plan to what we saw with Philly against the Rams 2 weeks ago, where Saquon just went bananas. A couple of 70-yard runs. I can see Cook breaking a run. I could see Allen having some big runs. So he's really, obviously he's playing at MVP level. He most likely is the MVP right now. I don't think narratively they're going to give it to Saquon. If McCaffrey didn't win it last year, I don't think Saquon gets it this year. And I think narratively also they would love to give the MVP to Allen. He's so deserving of it, especially this year. I'm not so impressed with the Rams either. The Rams, they didn't play a good game last week. They were really unimpressive. They had less than 5 yards per play for the game. Taking away garbage time in the last 4 games, they're 7 for 35 on third down. And I said that last week going into the game. I don't trust this team sustaining drives. I don't like the middle of the line. Avila coming back from injury hasn't been good. So I don't know that Buffalo has the real pass rush on the interior, but I believe Buffalo is the team now that's putting up 30 plus. and I don't see the letdown spot. I don't see the Rams defense holding Buffalo to a 23-24 point performance. So I like Buffalo. And again, we've said this a few times already also. When Buffalo wins, they win by margin. So I could see this game being a 7, 10, 13, 14 point game, and Buffalo not looking back again. Again, you can always question motivation with a team coming off a win, but they're still gunning for that one seed. I think they commented after the game, like, yeah, we won our division. This is one of our goals, but this is not the goal. And they're going for Kansas City. They know they beat Kansas City. They know that one seed is well within reach. I don't think they slip up here against a team that they're going to respect. So, and I don't think the Rams have much of a home field advantage really either. I think Buffalo can go cross country and really make a statement again.
Okay. Maybe I'll gain some confidence here in Buffalo's motivation to take him, because I like everything but the motivational angle here. Now, it's not enough for me to bet the Rams or even pick them. I would still go Buffalo, but
right. Were you worried about the Colts game? Were you worried because that was a sandwich spot off a divisional win with Kansas City on deck? We know that Kansas City was circled on their calendar, and they went into Indy, right, which is not a great team, and then they took care of business. They beat them 30-20, so they took care of business in the game. The game was close at halftime. It wasn't like they ran away with it. But then they played very well. They had a 30-13 lead late in the game. And then obviously, the Colts touchdown came with 2 seconds to go. So they won that. They dominated that second half, and they did what they had to do, coming off of a big divisional win with Kansas City on deck. And off the Kansas City game, they came out and took care of business the other night. So motivation could always be a factor, but this team this year with the number 1 seed in their sights, I think they and Detroit's on deck, right? So, quote unquote, the best team in the league is ahead of them. And now they certainly want to go out and make a statement there. But I think they continue to take care of business. And I look at the Rams, they at home got killed by Miami a few weeks ago in a night game. Buffalo is far better than Miami. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game were a similar, 34-20 type of game. I don't think the Rams could slow this team down.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but just because they didn't falter one time doesn't mean they won again. And that Colts game was weird because the first play of the game, Joe Flacco threw an interception that turned into a touchdown. So the Colts were down right away, and then Josh Downs dropped the touchdown. The Colts played very poorly in that game. Whereas the Rams are I know they.
Allen had 2 picks in that game, so one of those picks didn't turn into a touchdown. One of them turned into an Allen interception on the other side.
Yeah, I know, but still, I don't know. I feel like the Rams, despite that loss you mentioned to Miami, they're a sound team. I feel like they're not going to make a lot of mistakes. They really did in that Miami game because they had 2 returning linemen coming back from injury, and it didn't seem like they had the proper alignment on the offensive line, where they were just allowing a lot of sacks because there was a lot of confusion. So that was just a weird circumstance where a Sean McVay team just didn't live up to his coaching. But usually this is a team that won't kill itself with mistakes.
No, I agree. I think this is a good team. Where do you have the Rams in your power rankings? I have them 13th.
I have them 14th.
Okay.
So
and where do you have Buffalo?
3rd. What do you have?
Yes, I have 3rd also.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in agreement on the 2 teams. I mean, I think your angle is somewhat valid. You're worried about the motivation. Okay, I hear you. And I'm simply saying that this team has that drive now. I think next week is really going to be an interesting game.
Yeah,
it could be a Super Bowl preview, but Buffalo at Detroit, very, very interesting game. Other than that, Buffalo is not going to lose another game. So if they want that 1 seed, that's they got to win these next 2 games to have that shot.
Yeah, Kimmy Eagle says asking moneyline Buffalo, Miami, or Miami, Minnesota. I would trust Buffalo over Minnesota.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. All right. Let's get to the next one. So we have the Bears at the 49ers. So we'll have to see what the injury situation is here for the Niners, who've just been a train wreck with all their injuries. This line is San Francisco -4. I like Chicago a lot here. Assuming that the Niners don't get everyone back. Now, obviously, McCaffrey's not coming back; he's out for the year. So a couple other guys, Jordan Mason, for example, they lost Kevin Givens, but we'll see if they get Nick Bosa back, Trent Williams, who couldn't walk apparently, or it hurt him so much to walk that he had to be on a scooter. You have Fred Warner playing on a fractured ankle. I'm still not convinced Deebo Samuel's healthy. And in addition to Williams, like they basically lose George Kittle because when Williams is out, George Kittle has to block more. So they're pretty limited overall, and like we don't even know if Brock Purdy's healthy. So this Niner team is just you can't really trust them to win by margin, especially given that, like as you pointed out many times, that their red zone offense is horrible. And I thought that McCaffrey coming back would help, but it didn't. And then now McCaffrey's out anyway. So it's going to be tough for this 49 team to score. And then you have Chicago, who, they fired the head coach, which is usually a bullish short-term proposition because the players are going to, they're going to not want the finger pointed at them because they're going to want to try hard. And then really the Chicago team is, they're 4-8, but they've had so many close calls. Like if you just reverse the Hail Mary and the blocked field goal, which I think is pretty reasonable, like they're 6-6. And yet they could have won last week too. Like I know they were down big, but they came back. Caleb Williams has played much better since they fired their offensive coordinator, and I think he's gonna keep playing better. The San Francisco team misses a lot of tackles, so it wouldn't surprise me if Chicago won outright. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, so I agree with everything you said. And let's now erase the last 5 weeks for each team, right? Let's make this like a week 8 matchup, right? Here's exactly what you would say. The Bears have terrible stats, right? They're bottom of the league offense and defense. The Niners are top of the league offense and defense. And of course, the Niners should win this game, just like they should. Tampa Bay, we had this conversation. Seattle, we had this conversation. Here's the good news about the Niners. They didn't blow games the last 2 weeks. And in addition to all the things you just said about the injuries and the coaching bump, etc., the Niners, if they do have a lead, they're going to blow it because this team continues to kick field goals inside the red zone. They continue to kick field goals from the 4 or inside the 5. They continue to punt at the 50 or at the in plus territory at the 40, 45-yard line. And when they have leads, they have not been good at sustaining leads, at holding leads. So they blew games against Arizona. They blew games against the Rams, and the Rams were missing half their team. They blew the game against Dallas, although they held on. They blew a game against Seattle, although held on, the first matchup against Seattle. So if we take away all the injury situation and all the Bears who should have won and whatnot, we would say, well, the Niners should cover 6.5 points because that's probably what the line would be, right? 6.5, 7 points. And then the Niners wouldn't by 3. So even if the Niners have a lead, they're probably not holding on to it. So I have to be on the Bears. I can't lay points with a team that I can't trust. Certainly, listen, is the season over? No. They can still run the table, theoretically, just like Cincinnati, which we'll talk about later. Will they? No. They're not going to run the table. This hasn't been a good team all year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they lost this game. What I would be surprised about is if they won this game by 17-20 and held on to a big lead. So I could absolutely see them getting out to a halftime 17-7, 14-7 type of lead. And then all of a sudden the game's a one-score game, and me saying to myself or to my brothers, are we blowing this game again? And all of a sudden Caleb Williams has the ball, and they're down by 10, and they get a touchdown, and it's 2.5 minutes to go or 4 minutes to go, and the Niners get the ball, and they got to get a couple of first downs, and they'll probably end up punting on 4th and 3 or 4th and 5. The conversation we had a few minutes ago about teams that will punt or kick late field goals. So that's exactly where I see this game going. I think the Niners will come back and win because they were embarrassed. They were embarrassed 2 games in a row. The Bears will get a bump, but the Niners are still the better team. If Trent Williams plays, which is a big if, okay, if he doesn't, the Niners have no offensive line. But if he does play, if he can get back on the field, I think they have enough to pull out a win. But a cover? No thanks. Can't lay it. Don't trust it. And the Bears are alive. So I take the +4. This is probably on my card.
Yeah, me too. Niners way different with Williams out.
Way different. Trent Williams is their best player.
Yeah, like I said, they lose 2 players with Williams out because Kittle has to block more, and also Aaron Banks is out. He's pretty good guard. So they the fact that Trent Williams couldn't walk or had issues walking says to me, like, even if he plays this game, like, he may not be 100%. Like, he might leave early. So
yeah, and on a personal level, his wife announced this week that Ware is stillborn. Yeah, so there's, mentally, where's his head mentally right now? It's certainly the team is not going anywhere. So I don't know that he's, if he's borderline to play, he's not playing.
Yeah, it's hard.
Honestly, the Niners should rest everybody for next year. One more run at it. They should rest Kittle. They should rest Deebo. They should rest Trent. They should rest Bosa. All these guys should just hang them up for the year. Call it a day. It wasn't our year, and that's it. Let's come back, get everybody healthy, They're going to pay Purdy. They probably shouldn't pay. Purdy's an average quarterback who does well in this system. He's better than Garoppolo, but he's not a $45 million quarterback. Hopefully they don't give him that kind of money. And come back one more year with this core and see. They got to fire their defensive coordinator. They promoted a coordinator this year. They also brought Brandon Staley on the defensive coaching ranks, who has not been good at all. Shocker that Brandon Staley wasn't good. I think they should bring back Robert Saleh as DC. Give him another shot at DC. He was great for them a couple of years ago, and then run it back. But now you can't trust them laying points.
Yeah, I would sit everyone as well. Like the worst thing you could see happen is player tears his ACL and may not be ready for the start of the season. So yeah, totally agree. CMC could be finished. I don't know.
They rushed him back.
They did.
He wasn't in football shape. I think we actually talked about this when he came back. We're like, let's see if they ease him in or if they give him 25 carries. Of course, they gave him 25 touches.
Yeah.
The guy wasn't in football shape. He has 2 tough Achilles injuries, and he had a ton of touches last year and the year before. I wouldn't call him done. He's a freak athlete. I would give him credit one more year. Let's let him get healthy, let him rest up, and see where next year takes us. I wouldn't call him done. I would still. I mean, that guy is an unbelievable football player. It's a joy to watch on the field. It's a real shame if these injuries now, ruin the rest of his career. Right. But I would give him the benefit of the doubt for one more season.
Yeah, I don't know because these injuries can add up and running backs can disappear like in the blink of an eye, like we saw with Todd Gurley, for example. So it could happen, but I do agree that CMC has a good chance to bounce back. But yeah, they definitely did rush him back. He had the Achilles injury, although they claimed it was a calf and he could play in week 1.
Now they claim it's a PCL. It looked like a calf injury, but I'm not a doctor, so
you can't trust anything they say at all. All right. So Sunday Night Football, Chargers at the Chiefs. This line is Chiefs -4. I imagine that the public is going to be all over the Chargers because all I saw on Twitter, like on Friday during the Black Friday game, was like, "Oh, Chiefs suck. Like they can't win." Like. People were like looking at last year, and they're like, "Oh, last year they had Rashee Rice, and they had a good defense. Now they suck. They almost lost to the Raiders. They almost lost to the Panthers." Like this Chiefs team doesn't try hard in the regular season. We know that they treat the regular season like an NBA team where they just goof around. And like we were talking before we started recording about this stupid NBA Cup thing and like the players not trying. And this kind of reminds me of the Chiefs where they try stupid stuff at the goal line, like they experiment, like they get themselves ready for the playoffs, and it seems like everyone is so down on them, even though they're 11-1, which is ridiculous. But the Chiefs team does show up sometimes. Like they showed up week 1 against the Ravens. They were clobbering Baltimore until Lamar Jackson's late comeback. The Ravens almost won the game, but still the Chiefs had a big lead in that game. They showed up against San Francisco. They beat the Niners by 10. So it feels like when they are threatened, they will show up and win these games. And I think, could be wrong, but I think that the Chargers might be on their radar. The Chargers are 8-4. If the Chiefs lose this game, they're only going to be up by 2 in the division. And the Chargers have been making a lot of noise here. They have Jim Harbaugh. Justin Herbert has been talked up a lot. And like I said, the public is going to be all over the Chargers. I feel like, even the Chiefs are favored by 4. You're going to see those Sunday morning shows and like everyone's going to be taking the Chargers. Like, I feel like that's what this is going to be. So given this is like a reduced line of sorts, the advanced spread was 4.5. That's down to 4. I think that there's a little bit of value with the Chiefs. Now, I'm not crazy to take them in the regular season, but I don't want any part of the Chargers right now because I did like them a lot. You know that. Like I've been talking them up a lot during the course of the year, but they're starting to have a lot of injuries. Like J.K. Dobbins being out is a huge deal. I usually don't care about running backs, but like there's a huge gap between Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Denzel Perriman being out means they can't stop the run. They're down one of the starting cornerbacks last week, Cam Hart. We'll see if he plays. Their offensive line. McConkey got banged up. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see if he plays or not. And then their blocking was very suspect last week. They allowed 5 sacks to Atlanta. Like, was that Atlanta getting better suddenly, or is that the Chargers' offensive line? I don't know. So there's a lot here. I'm going to be on the Chiefs. So what do you think about this?
I made the line 5.5, 4.5, 5.5. So I was kind of surprised the line opened 3.5. But here's the problem with this game. and I know it's a public dog. Kansas City is a different team than what they were in the past. Kansas City, Mahomes got sacked a career high 5 times last week.
Yeah.
I think Joe Tooney they moved Joe Tooney from guard to left tackle. By the way, I'm not sure if DJ Humphries is playing in this game.
I heard that there's a good chance he's going to play.
That would be huge because I think they went to Joe Tooney or Mahomes went to somebody and was like, get this guy. I think it was who was a left tackle that Mahomes basically benched a left tackle. And he moved Tooney over to play left tackle. I mean, he was under pressure every single time. They were dropping passes. He was off on a lot of his throws. They gave up 340 yards passing to O'Connell, which is pretty pathetic. Every single week they're playing with their food. They're just every week they should have lost to Denver. They got the block field goal. They should have lost to Cincinnati. They should have lost to Atlanta. They almost lost to Baltimore at the end of that game. And let's be fair. One of the things I was most disappointed in the Raiders game this week, and it wasn't so much the fact that their defense was poor at the end of the game and giving up a long drive or the drops, which happens, because they're just kind of ring around the rosy on some of these plays. My biggest problem in the game was they get the ball back. There's 4 minutes to go in the game. They run the ball for 5 yards, 2nd and 5. Mm-hmm. They run the ball for 3 yards, 3rd and 2. There's now 2:07 on the clock. The Raiders just burned their third timeouts. They have no more timeouts. You just ran for 8 yards on the first 2 plays, and you have the ball at the 44-yard line. They can stand up and make an announcement to the entire stadium. We are now going to run the ball on 3rd and 2. We are going to line up in jumbo, and we are going to run the ball on 3rd and 2. And if we don't get on 3rd and 2, if it becomes 4th and 2 or 4th and 1, at least it'll be the 2-minute warning, and then we'll decide what we want to do. If we want to run or pass, whatever, we'll figure that out. But we are now going to run the football. Raiders, you can put 11 guys in the box. We are not throwing. We're running the ball. And what do? They go play action, and he throws the ball deep to Xavier Worthy, who, first of all, can't catch anyway, and he overthrows him. How on earth do you throw the ball on 3rd and 2? That is the dumbest play that I can think of. And I'm shocked that Andy Reid and Mahomes came up with that play. It doesn't do anything to complete that pass. It doesn't do anything to score a touchdown. You only want to run the ball. You get a first down, 2-minute warning, you take a knee. And theoretically, on 4th and 2, they probably should have ran the ball again, or at least go for it there. You want to throw, but at least do something conservative, do something short, like Mahomes has done a million times, or running himself, taking some sort of a read option. I mean, if you told me Mahomes has a 3rd and 2 to win the game, and he has 2 chances to get it from the 40-yard line, that game is over. Except it wasn't over because they punted. They punted after they threw the ball. So there are so many things that I can't stand watching when I'm watching this Chiefs team right now. They were outgained 6.9 to 4.9 yards per play. They gave up the last drive, and the coaching has just been abysmal. So the offensive line has been bad. There's just so much wrong right now with Kansas City. Now, I have not been a Chargers person, as you know. I finally came around to the Chargers a couple weeks ago in their win against Cincinnati, which doesn't look as impressive now as it did a couple weeks ago. I have the Chargers ranked 10th in my power ratings, but even in that rating, I still make this game 4.5, 5.5, not 4, not 3.5, not 4. I don't really like the game. I mean, I don't want to lay points with Kansas City. McConkey, Harbaugh says he's working through some things. I don't know what that means, but if he's not healthy, we know that Quentin Johnston can't catch. Dobbins, if he's not playing, they don't have a running threat. They won the game last week because Kirk Cousins handed them the game, literally handed them the game. So Herbert and Mahomes both sacked a few times. I could see this game being a really, like it was the first time they played. It was 10-0 at halftime. I think Kansas City won 17-0 in the second half. I like the under. I don't think these teams are running down the field. I don't think these teams are getting explosive plays. The Chargers can't sustain drives. The Chiefs can, but they don't finish drives. So I don't really know where to go. I don't want to be on the public dog. I don't think I'm getting enough line value. I would have liked to see this spread be a little bit higher. I do like Kansas City at home at night better than I like them at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Or maybe I shouldn't like them at home at night. I mean, they don't show up on Christmas. They didn't show up this week on Black Friday. I worry that they're not going to show up on Christmas again against Pittsburgh. And I don't think they're going to end up with the 1 seed. I think Buffalo will I think Kansas City will find a way to lose one of these next 2 games. And Buffalo will end up with the 1 seed. And this might be the year that Kansas City doesn't make the Super Bowl. But, until it happens in a big game, it's hard to bet against it. Right now, I don't know where to go here. I mean, I don't like the line. I don't want to be on either of these teams, but I'm not laying points with Kansas City. You ask me to lay points in a pool, I'm not doing it. Right now, they don't deserve it. If the line is pick 'em, great. Line's more than 3, no thanks.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And I totally agree. I mean that idiotic play calling was just staggering.
I was going crazy because I had quite a bit of money on Kansas City winning that game.
Yeah.
And I was just fuming at what I'm watching in that game. Like, I don't understand how you throw the ball on 3rd and 2. I just don't get it.
I don't
tell everybody in the world we are running the ball on this play. I don't care if they stop it. We're running the ball. It's 2 minutes. It will be 4th and 2. No problem. You cannot throw the ball and stop the clock before the 2-minute warning. That is just so dumb. That's typical. You know what? We don't care if we win or lose this game. We just don't care. And that is so bad, so poor, so poor. I don't expect it from Reed, and I don't expect it from Mahomes. That is crazy. I wish I had like the Manning cast on and watching Peyton Manning reacting to that because nobody knows. I mean, I love Peyton Manning. I love watching and listening to him talk during these games. I can't imagine what would go through a guy like that's head in that situation. It's just, we don't give a shit. Let's just throw the ball deep. Why not? Who cares? 3rd and 2, let's chuck it deep. There's no reason to do it. None.
Yeah, it really made no sense because either way they would have won the game. It's not like completing that pass would have won the game because just running the ball would have won the game if they got a first down. Like it would have been over. So
that's what you expect to see in a college game where there's boosters and the coaches know the spreads. And there's no joke because there's a lot. I mean, look at Penn State. I mean, they know the spreads. Like the boosters, the coaches know the lines, and they're throwing the ball. There are a lot of situations where teams could take a knee and don't. And it's like, why do you think that is? Like, let's be fair here. We all know what's going on. So when there's a lot of money involved and spreads are involved, coaches understand in college what the deal is. They got to cover. In the NFL, like, what are you nuts? How do you not run the ball 3rd and 2? And they just ran for 8 yards. It's not like they ran the ball backwards or can't get a yard. I mean, just idiotic play calling. It just makes me crazy. And that's why I can't be on the Chiefs. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve to be favored by more than 3 points. They can't win by more than 3. They don't deserve to win these games outright.
No, let me play devil's advocate here because obviously it was a stupid thing to do. But what if this was just them being like, we don't care. Like we don't care if we lose this game because this is the regular season. We've been down this road before, and we would rather get Xavier Worthy some confidence. Maybe that means more.
I don't think it was about confidence. I think it was just about stats. I don't think it was build his confidence. I would think it was, you know what? Let's see if we can get Xavier Worthy a touchdown here. Like, why not? Well, let's see if Holmes can get a touchdown pass here.
Because I think like for the playoffs, because Marquise Brown is coming back soon, but we don't know if he's going to be 100%. Like they need a deep threat, and if they got Worthy to catch a touchdown there, maybe that propels him. I don't know.
Can you imagine if they lost that game and because of that loss they blow the 1 seed?
But it's right. It's stupid, but they've won this. They've won as a non number 1 seed before. So I feel like they know they can do it. Like
that, and that's the point. It's not about we want to get him confidence. It's that we just don't care. We're just gonna, we're just gonna wing it. We're just gonna wing it. And if they're gonna play with that mentality and prepare with that mentality, that's not a winning mentality. We keep winning. They've won a league record, NFL history record, 14 straight 1-score games. 14 straight 1-score games, NFL record. That's crazy.
Right. It's insane. But I don't know. I just throwing that out there because I like as stupid as that was. I don't expect the same stupidity in this game. Or maybe I'm wrong, but I think they will try harder in this game. That's my thesis here, is that like the Chargers will be on their radar, unlike the Raiders. Just because they thought they could beat the Raiders with their worst effort, and they did. So. Stanley asking, do you think the Panthers pull the upset? We talked about that game a little earlier, Stanley. We both like the Eagles to win and to cover. Although no, I have the Eagles covering, even though I said that they could look past the Panthers. They really could, but that still might be too.
I will be looking for my FanDuel specials for some wild rushing props in that game.
My fear,
ladder the rushing props.
My fear was Saquon Barkley in that game, and I think I would.
He might in the fourth quarter.
Right, exactly. Like they may just go to Gainwell or Shipley.
Great, and then you live bet Saquon under when you see that happen.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
But I don't know that I would bet Saquon. I think I would bet the team rushing.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I would think that they're going to rush for. I mean, you can ladder it, but I think 200 is an easy number. 300 might be a fun big plus money prop.
Yeah, they could definitely get there. All right, Monday Night Football. We have Dallas again on Monday Night Football, and they couldn't flex out this game because of some Simpsons thing, which I was confused. Maybe
some Nickelodeon.
But is it Nickelodeon CBS? Like, and this is ESPN ABC. I have no idea. I don't understand this, but anyway, we have the Bengals favored by 5.5 in this game. It was 6, so it's getting some money in Dallas. But this is very strange for me. But I'm going to be on Dallas here. So the Bengals are just like they're like the Jets and the Niners. These 3 teams I called them falling knives last week, where it's like. It's almost like a stock, where the stock used to be like $50 and now it's like $5, and you're like, oh my God, like only $5. Let me buy into this. And then the next thing you know, it's 50 cents. And right. It's staring down a reverse split, and like you're going to lose 90% of your shares. You just can't take these teams. And like Cincinnati, like, yeah, they have Burrow, they have Chase, they have Higgins. Chase Brown's been great, but that's it. Like I keep saying this, like, they have a great offensive core, even though they don't block very well. But they don't have anything else. Like they're not coached well, first of all, but they can't do anything defensively. They're currently the worst defensive team in the NFL in terms of EPA. That their pass rush is below average. They can't stop the run that well. They're even worse against the pass. They just allowed Russell Wilson to throw for 400 yards. I can't like justify this team being favored by 5.5 on the road, or even favored by more than 3 on the road. And I know Dallas is not good by any means, but Dallas's defense has at least gotten better. When we were betting them heavily against the Texans, they didn't have Micah Parsons, but now they do. And Parsons just makes such a huge difference. With Parsons, they're up to 3rd defensively in EPA. It's just it just makes that much of a difference. Now, I still don't think they can stop the run very well. But they can at least get after the quarterback. And like I said, the Bengals don't block very well. So I think they can at least slow down Joe Burrow a little bit with Parsons, and then give themselves a chance to score enough points against this horrible defense. I know it's Cooper Rush, but Cooper Rush is, he got Brandon Cooks back last week. I think he's going to get Jake Ferguson back this week. Cincinnati awful against tight end, so Ferguson should have a good game. And then the offensive lineman that Dallas is missing, I feel like they should be back as well. So this Dallas team is starting to believe in itself, which is kind of dumb. Like, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but they do believe in themselves. And I think they're going to show an effort here. And by the way, we actually saw this game happen before. In 2022, it was Bengals at Cowboys with Cooper Rush starting. And Dallas won 20-17, as I think they were like 7.5 point underdogs. So what'd you say?
I remember, they were like a 6 or 7 point underdog.
Yeah, they were huge underdogs. Now, granted, Cincinnati starts slowly, but that Cincinnati team was much better than this one. They had DJ Reader, they had Jesse Bates, they had all their defensive stars they allowed to leave. So no, I like Dallas here. I think Dallas could win outright. This is one of my favorite plays of the week, oddly enough, because we've been fading Dallas like crazy. But I like the Cowboys here. So
it's interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, listen, Dallas, they weren't impressive last week. Okay. Drew Lock threw a pick 6, and then Drew Lock fumbled, and Dallas put up 14 points because Drew Lock is Drew Lock. Joe Burrow is not Drew Lock. Joe Burrow has 30 touchdown passes and only 5 picks this season. Now, you talk about Cincinnati's defense. They are the first team in NFL history to lose 4 times where they've scored 33 plus points.
Crazy.
Their defense has given up 34 or more points in 4 of the last 5 games. Pretty sad. And they allowed Russell Wilson, who I gave a lot of credit to earlier, they allowed him to complete 8 passes. 8 different receivers had 20 or more yards, 20 more yard reception. Not 20 more yards, a 20-plus yard reception. 8 guys and 400-plus receiving yards. So you talk about Parsons. I agree Parsons is a difference maker, as is TJ Watt. They're not shutting down Cincinnati. Now, my only fear in this game from Cincinnati, and it's not even the defense, because I know the defense thinks, and I know the defense is giving up points. Even if Dallas is bad, they should by default put up 24 points. 24 points for Dallas's offense. But I worry that there's somewhat of a, hey, our season's now over. Now, Cincinnati has to run the table. theoretically, they play Denver. They play Denver at home. So they have winnable games. They're favored here. They'll be favored against Tennessee. They'll be favored against Cleveland. They'll be favored against Denver. And then they play Pittsburgh in week 18, which probably will matter. I wouldn't necessarily think that Pittsburgh has a division wrapped up, and I certainly wouldn't think Baltimore has it wrapped up. So that will be a tough game. I was on Cincinnati last week. I expect them to win, and they came out. They had a lead. They had a lead pretty much every other drive, and credit to Pittsburgh for doing what they did. I worry that there's a mentality that the season's over for Cincinnati, and that the defense and the team will prepare, with that kind of like, that downer mentality. And that would scare me off of this game. What I'm not afraid of in this game, however, is them putting up points. So if their defense is bad, and they've had a lot of these games this season, you have to bet the over in this game. I would bet the Cincinnati team total in the over. I would bet the game over. Almost every single one of Cincinnati games goes over. I'm just going to pull up Cincinnati's games real quick here. So I want to see what the lines are in these games and give you a real number. Cincinnati over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Their last 5 games went over. The Cleveland game earlier they played went under. The Giants game went under. Baltimore over 6, 7, 8 to the over. They're 9-3 to the over. Dallas is 8-4 to the over. So you have two teams that don't play any defense at all. You have two of the worst defense in the league on both sides. And I fully expect Cincinnati to score. So if you like Dallas, you like points. Now, I don't know that I like Dallas, but I think this game is going to be like a 34-24, 41-27. I think Cincinnati is going to put up a ton of points. Because there's one thing I know about Burrow is that he's not throwing picks. He may fumble. He may take the strip sack fumble, and maybe that leads to points also, whether it's a defensive score or a pick in his own zone. But I know that they're going to throw the ball downfield. This is a game where I would look again. I'm gonna find these FanDuel specials for you. You're going to get 5-1. You're going to get some really good proposition bets on CeeDee Lamb and Chase or Higgins or all three getting a lot of yards. This could be a shootout like we saw last night with Jameis and Nix, although now it'll just be Burrow against bad defenses or Cincinnati's defense just being horrible. You could absolutely get, I know I always look for it and always look to laugh from it, the fake punt in their own zone from Mike McCarthy. You can get some weird 4th down, go for it in your own 4th and 5, go for it in your own end, by your own end zone or on your own 20, 25 yard line. So I really like points in this game. So I haven't decided if I want to. I'm not on the Cowboys. I'm not in agreement with you on taking Dallas. I don't know that I want to lay points from a contest perspective with Cincinnati. Like I said, who I don't trust will be mentally focused defensively, but I think there's going to be a lot of points. So that's my play in this game. Cincinnati over, game over. I don't see any way Dallas holds them to less than 31 to 34 points. So, and the over-under in this game, I think, was 51 and a half is the over-under. Oh, sorry, 49 and a half. Even better. By the way, this line opened at 44 and a half. When the heck was it 44 and a half? That must have been a look ahead. 44 and a half is absolutely wild. No, it opened this week. It opened at 50 and a half. It actually bet down to 49 and a half. So the look ahead was 44, 45. And then people saw what they needed to see, and 44, 45 is a mistake. So I think there's going to be a lot of points. I don't agree with you that I want to be on Dallas. I would not be surprised if Dallas found themselves down big in this game. If Cincinnati comes out and they try, and Rush makes mistakes, and the Bengals score every single drive like they did against Pittsburgh, this is going to get ugly. So,
well, I fear it could be, like Bengals 17, Giants 7, where it was 10-7 until that last touchdown. Or
that hasn't happened in a while with Cincinnati's offense.
Well, I mean, whenever they played good defenses this year, they have struggled.
Dallas is not the definition of a good defense. Dallas right now is ranked 29th overall.
I have them 3rd in EPA.
Dallas?
Yeah, 3rd defense. Yep.
How is that possible?
Yards per play, with Parsons. Only games with Parsons.
Only games with Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Dallas. Okay.
Yeah, like for example, like when they play the Browns, they scored 21. They played the Eagles. They scored 17. Now, I know they scored 38.
Well, the Eagles are the best defense in football. And
Right.
really, it was the Giants game and the Cleveland game back to back where they were really bad offensively.
Yeah. But,
The
like, ever
Giants
since
game,
then,
Burrow had
like,
a long run.
ever since then, like, they played the Raiders. It's terrible. Ravens can't stop anyone. Chargers.
They
That
put up
was
40, yeah, but they put up 38. Well, 31 was offensively. The Chargers, they put up 27. It's a better defense. Baltimore, we know, is not a great defense. Although Baltimore's played better lately. They put up 30 plus in both of those games, 40 plus against the Raiders. The Eagles game, obviously, they got blown out. That game was close until the fourth quarter. And now we're going back more than a month. So I'm just looking at Cincinnati lately. Burrow has been awesome. And Chase is unstoppable. And Higgins, when he's in the lineup, the three of them, that one, that 1-1A receiver punch is it kind of shows the league they're paying receivers and they let DJ Reader walk and they let the safety walk, and now their defense is horrible. Same scheme, same DC, and their team is garbage. They have no defense. They lost a lot of their players that matter. So, it just goes to show when you pay these receivers sometimes it's not worth it. You're better off doing what the Bills did, better off doing what the Chiefs did. You can find a receiver. If you have a quarterback like Burrow, you can make some of these. Josivac had a great catch last week. You could find some of these receivers and make them work. You don't need two $30 million receivers on your team. So, but I think this game's going to be. I think since I'm confident Cincinnati is putting up a lot of points. So if that line is 20, is that line's 49-50, that means their over under is probably like 27.5, somewhere in that ballpark. 27.5 to 21.5 would be the over unders. I really, really like Cincinnati over 27.5 points. I will be betting that. And I will be betting the Burrow yards, and I will be betting the total passing yards and the total receiving yards. And we'll ladder it. And I might send you a text on Monday night around 11 o'clock that, hey, I need another 40 yards from Burrow to get my 450 for the week. So I have it again already. It's plus 1,700.
That's awesome. Yeah, it could happen. I was not very happy with what I saw from Cincinnati in the second half last week. They scored only 10 points until like a late garbage time touchdown. It felt like the Steelers made some adjustments, and like Burrow was under pressure a lot. He lost the fumble.
Yeah.
It just
TJ
like
Watt made a play.
Yeah. First half they were great. Second half they just didn't do much, and like really, it's been a lot like that this year with this team. Like they just don't have complete games. Like, the Ravens games, for example, like they play well. They play so well for like a half, and then the other half they just suck. Like they blew that lead against the Ravens the first time, for example. I'm thinking of the Bengals game, the Chargers game where they were down 27-6 and then they stormed back. Like that first half was terrible. Like second half against the Steelers last week. This team just doesn't seem to sustain like success for a full 60 minutes.
Well, they had 5 drives in the second half, and they had a 3rd and 9 where they took a sack, or 3rd and 6, I'm sorry, took a sack on the Pittsburgh 11-yard line. So their first drive they drove 48 yards and took a sack on 3rd down that led to a field goal. On their second drive of the half, he threw a pick. So credit Pittsburgh with the pick. On the 3rd drive was the strip sack. 4th drive, touchdown. 5th drive, touchdown. So they moved the ball. They still put up 17 points in the second half, and that's nothing to slide against. It's 5 drives, and 2 of them were turnovers, and 3 of them were scores. They didn't punt in the second half. They punted once the entire game. Twice. They had a 3 now in their first drive, so they punted twice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't look at that. Dallas, to me, again, I understand what you're saying with Parsons. I get it, but to me, Dallas defense, that's not the defense I'm worried about.
Okay. We'll see. Well, which cereal would you start in your flex? Cinnamon, Life, Cocoa Pebbles, Berry Kicks, or Waffle Girls? Look, I have Cocoa Pebbles for breakfast every morning, so I need it. It's not in my flex. It's my starting quarterback. So, where can I see the contest picks? I assume you mean Super Contest or Circa Million. You can just Google.
They post them on Saturday night.
They post Saturday night. There's also a site called fantasysupercontest.com. You check that out. But Saturday night, Sunday morning.
I don't know what your record is. My record 32-1, just absolutely awful.
Is that Super Contest or
that's Circa? Super Contest 31-33-1, so 1 game bad. Oh, horrible.
In
Last week
the
I was 1-4. That's all you need to know. 1-4, terrible.
in the super contest, I'm 37-28. I am in the what's more exciting though is the 9-week contest.
Yeah.
I am 15-5 in the 9-week contest so far, which is
you're gonna need a good 5-0.
well, right.
You're gonna need another 5-0.
I am
So,
well, I mean, I am. Let's see. I am tied for 34th right now. Sorry, yeah. No, I'm 34th. I'm only the first place team in the 9-week contest is 17-2-1. So 15-5, just hanging around there, and plus 5-0 in this new 3-week contest. So
well, I'm 10-10, so I'm out of it.
well, yeah, you're right. I mean, you are right. 5-0s and 4-1s here on out, and that'll get us there. But yeah, I would love another 5-0. That would be great, especially after last week. But okay, yeah, I guess that's about it. Do you have any other final thoughts? Anything to plug here?
No, I mean we're almost now at the time where we can start going on the ESPN playoff machine, which is a lot of fun. I still think we're about probably 2 weeks away from really starting to go through different scenarios. I don't think I was looking through FanDuel the other night at win totals and yes to make the playoffs and things of that nature, and I don't think there's really any value. I think some of the lines that I liked were like minus 200.
Mm-hmm.
It was. I'm going to continue writing these FanDuel specials that are so low hanging fruits, and you could see if you look at the weekly specials there. Again, we talked about like the Dallas receiving yards and whatnot. Favorite long shot Super Bowl. I've talked about this before. I think if there's a long shot that you like, it's probably going to be priced better to play them mechanically. I haven't even looked at Super Bowl futures in a while.
Well, we have it on the screen here.
I'm looking at your screen now, yeah.
So
Favorite
thank you.
long shots. What's considered a long shot? Like Houston at 34-1?
I don't know, John. You tell us what do you consider a long shot?
Washington at 70-1.
It's not bad. So yeah, thank you, John, for the 411 super chat. So okay, so long shots. So again, these are probably not going to hit.
I don't know what a long shot is considered. I mean, I don't consider 14-1 a long shot. So like,
no, I don't either.
Or Pittsburgh.
Okay, John says 30-1.
30-1.
Okay.
So you're looking at like Houston. I mean, if we had this conversation 2 months ago, I would have said, yeah, I like Houston as a long shot. Not anymore.
Yeah. I
don't see Houston winning a couple of games in a row in the playoffs the way they've played.
I'll say this about Houston. If you want to make a good comparison, like the most bullish comparison ever for them, I would say the 2008 Arizona Cardinals, who, remember, they started off hot and then they just flopped down the stretch. They were getting blown out left and right. They got smoked at New England in the cold. They looked like they were going to be one and done in the playoffs, and they rallied because they had the talent. They had obviously the quarterback with Kurt Warner and Larry Fitzgerald, and they made it to the Super Bowl. They almost won. So if you're going to say that a team that the Texans, who have just been kind of like treading through mud and stuff like that, just like, yeah, they had a nice win early against the Bills, and they looked impressive at times, but then they've kind of floundered around. They've barely beaten bad teams. They've lost to some bad teams like the Jets. They could rally. Like, they have the talent. CJ Stroud's really talented. They have Nico Collins is healthy. Tank Dell is getting healthier each week. Tunsil has not played well this year at all, but he's still Laremy Tunsil. If he gets his act together, they could block better. Joe Mixon is a stud. They have D'Amico Ryans, who's a good defensive-minded coach. They have a really good pass rush. They have talent in the secondary, and it hasn't lived up to it, but they have talent there. I don't think it's crazy to say the Texans could win the Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to do it, but at 34-1, I think that's the best long shot I see.
I think the teams that I would look at as a really crazy long shot is Washington at 70-1.
Okay.
Or Tampa, because I think Tampa is going to win the division, and if you look, and they'll get a home game. They'll play like a Minnesota, let's say, in the first round, maybe Green Bay, but they'll have a home game. And if you think back to last year, Philly, I mean, they beat Philly at home in that playoff game. Philly was like dead man walking for the last 2 months of the season, and then they went into Detroit. And that game wasn't a cakewalk for Detroit. Now, Detroit was obviously much better. I think they were favored by Detroit was favored by 6.5 in the game.
Yeah.
And if you look at the game cast, I just want to see the sequence of scoring.
Yeah, no, Detroit cover. I remember Detroit cover because
that game was 10-10 at halftime, and it was 17-7 going into the fourth quarter. Now, Detroit ended up taking a 2-touchdown lead late in the game, but that was a tie game going into the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not telling you that the Bucs are going to – the Bucs might not even make the playoffs. Now, Washington is going to make the playoffs. That much I'm confident in saying. Tampa Bay needs to win the division, and they're not even favored right now to win the division to make the playoffs. So is that 60 or 80? I can't see on your screen. It looks like it's a 60.
Tampa's 60-1.
So you're getting 60-1 or 70-1 with a team that potentially could make some noise in the playoffs. But again, the only reason I say these 60 or 70 is because if you mechanically bet Tampa Bay, you're not going to get 60-1 in the playoffs. Right. You're not going to get 70-1 with Washington playoffs. Like teams like 30-1 or 15-1 or 20-1, you'll probably do better betting week in, week out, but not at 70-1. And Washington, would it surprise anybody if Washington is a 7 seed and goes into Philadelphia in the playoffs and beats a divisional rival? If I'm Philly, I don't want to play Washington in the playoffs. I know they beat them already, but that game is going to happen again. That rematch is going to happen again. And we always say, like, oh, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, although we'll talk about that because I think I've seen teams win 3 times now. A few times.
I know, it's pretty easy to beat a team 3 times. that's the biggest.
I was just thinking in my head, like recently we've heard a couple, but I'd like to see Washington play Philly. They play Philly at home in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks. And that could be interesting. 70-1. I'll tell you, I wouldn't book you. I wouldn't want to book you. If you said, hey, I want to take Washington, would you book me at 70-1? I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not giving you 70-1 on Washington. It's because that team's going to be that team's a live dog. Why wouldn't they be a live dog in those playoff games? Jay Daniels gets high, you never know. So that's interesting conversation, but I don't think 30-1 is enough for Texans. For me, it would be Washington or Tampa at 60 and 70. But I really don't think either team is winning the Super Bowl anyway. But that's besides the point.
Okay. Yeah. So if the Texans lose to the Dolphins, we might, and that's week 15. It maybe you'll get a better number there. I do think that there is some merit to taking Houston because they have the talent and they could get it together like Arizona did. But like I said, I don't expect them to win, but still, that's my favorite one. I do like your Washington call too. Best money line. I think this is money line parlay, unless it says Missouri parlay.
Best money line parlay. We've hit a couple of these now. I mean, these are kind of more for fun than they are for real. Although I hit one for like 2,000 a couple of weeks ago. Best money line parlay. I don't know what this pays, but I mean, I would look at. I mean, if you're putting like 5 or 6 games in and you want to get better odds, I mean, I wouldn't mind using Detroit, Minnesota, Tampa, Pittsburgh. I mean, there's no value in Philly.
Or Miami.
Buffalo. That's probably it.
No Miami.
See, I wouldn't go Miami. I don't trust them.
I like Miami. I trust them against bad teams.
I understand.
Yeah. I would.
Detroit, Minnesota, Tampa, Pittsburgh, Philly, Buffalo are the teams I would trust. If you're trying to have some fun with some money line parlays. And I see there's a comment, did I bet the Washington under? I planned to, and I didn't. Because I like their schedule at the time. I have over 8.5 wins. I was waiting for like a 10.5 or 11.5. I saw it at 11.5 before the Pittsburgh game, but I thought they were going to beat Pittsburgh, and I had them in that Pittsburgh game. And then when they lost, I think I lost my value, and then they lost to Philly, and the line dropped to 10.5. I actually like the over 10.5 now, and I think it's like plus 140 or plus 150, because I fully expect Washington to. What is their record now? What are they? 9? Sorry, they have 8 wins.
8-5.
8-5. I believe that they'll win at least 2, but I think they could beat the Saints also. And it's plus money, but I haven't done it yet. It's a bye week. I just figured I'll reconsider next week.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts on the college conference championship games? Asks Slew.
I'm very excited about college. I saw before that Alabama moved ahead of Miami. I think both of those teams deserve to be out the way they've played. Miami, once they lost to Syracuse, forget it. They deserve to be out. Forget them.
Yeah.
And if SMU loses to Clemson, I'd be very curious to see if the committee moves SMU behind Bama, because right now SMU is 8. And are they going to penalize a team in their conference championship? A team that has 1 loss in the regular season and loses in the conference championship over a team like Bama that has 3 losses. And I would say, yes, Alabama should be penalized because 3 losses. I mean, they got blown out by Oklahoma. That's a bad team. So the fact that they got blown out by Oklahoma, to me, if SMU loses, SMU should stay in and Bama should be out. Do I have an opinion on the games? I think Texas is going to win big. That line is 2.5. I love Texas in the game. Georgia is not as good as as people think they are. I think Texas also did that. That was the one game they lost. Did they lose? Yeah, they got killed in Georgia at home. So now neutral site game, revenge. I think Texas wins big. That line's 2.5. I think Arizona State will win. Although that line's been moving, I think that'll open to pick them, and that's now -2. I think Arizona State's a good bet. Oregon is -3.5. I don't have a big opinion on that. I do like SMU. I mentioned SMU before just now, so I like SMU -2.5. I think SMU is a much better team than Clemson. So SMU, Texas, Arizona State. I'm giving you short favorites. Nothing really valuable there, but the other games I don't really have an opinion. UNLV Boise is a rematch. That was an awesome game a couple of weeks ago. So that's a great game to watch. I like the over in that game, although it's a very high number. Tulane Army, I have no opinion. Western Kentucky, Jacksonville State. I think they just played also. I don't have a real opinion on that game. With college, I generally bet live because I think there's a lot of comebacks in college. I think teams take leads and blow them very, very quickly and easily. These are kids, and momentum swings a lot. I'm not a huge fan of Penn State. I don't like laying 3.5, but I would lean towards Oregon. So SMU I like. Texas I like a lot. I really like Texas. I love Texas, especially since they lost to Georgia already.
I'm just disgruntled with these conference championship games. Like, what is Penn State, Oregon? It's a Rose Bowl, not Big Ten. Like, Clemson, SMU, Georgia, Texas. Like,
do you have an opinion on Texas, Georgia?
I was leaning toward Georgia. Actually, I haven't really dug into it though. I post my college football picks like on usually Wednesday afternoon. So
I am not impressed with Georgia. I am not impressed with Carson Beck at all. That game the other night, what was that? 8 overtimes.
Yeah, but wait, overtimes. Like going for 2 is overtime.
Oh my god! First of all, them walking back and forth 100 yards between overtimes it's hilarious for the first 2 or 3 times, and then it gets really old. They were shut out at halftime by Georgia Tech. I mean, this team, and there was theoretically, I thought it was kind of a must-win game, but Miami lost, and so those are teams that kind of stayed ahead of them. They are not an impressive team. Carson Beck, he just laughs on the sideline. I don't like Georgia this year. I like Texas a lot more. I like Oregon. But the question is, do these teams really care? I mean, I guess they do. I guess it matters. They want to get a bye. SMU has been impressive, and Clemson has not. Clemson's kind of snuck into this game. They didn't belong in this game. SMU has been winning by margin pretty much every week. SMU's been a good team. I've been betting SMU recently, so I like SMU. Arizona State. I don't really like that conference. That conference is not very good. UNLV Boise, points. What was the score the last time they played? I'm just trying to think back. It was, only 53. Okay, the line's 58.5.
Yeah. I just can't wait for the playoffs. It's going to be so much fun.
I know. I'm so excited for the playoffs. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Who do you think is better between Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward? I would say Sanders.
I would say Sanders also.
Yeah.
I don't really like either prospect, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, this quarterbacking class is not great at all. We had one more question.
Is who's going to be the Heisman? Is it going to be Travis Hunter or Genty?
I think Genty, but I don't know.
I agree. I think Genty also.
Yeah. We had one last question. A fun question. Walt, do your kids try to eat your Cocoa Pebbles? And if so, how can we prevent this? Yeah, my son always says, I want Daddy's cereal. So he always eats my Cocoa Pebbles. So I have to double up on boxes whenever I go to the grocery store. So I don't know. I'm okay with him eating my cereal. I know you're kidding, but yeah. So that's about it for tonight's show. So guys, thank you so much for commenting, watching. Really appreciate it. Thank you, especially to Winfield Scott for the 199 super chat, John Sanders for the 411, and K Make an Eagle for the 1999. Just really appreciate it, guys. And yeah, so we'll be back tomorrow with Kenny for the fantasy football rundown. So get your fantasy questions prepared for the final regular season week of fantasy football. And then Thursday we'll be joined by Andy Isco as usual, and then Saturday with Tom. Just really looking forward to the rest of the week, and hopefully this is another great week. Marshmallow Pebbles have not had that, so I'll have to try it sometime, just not have it. All right, guys, thank you so much once again. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store, and thank you, Evan, for another great show. I love doing the show with you. I look forward to it all the time. So all right, guys,
good luck, everyone.
all right, guys, have a good night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.